of course, are out of commission. The speed limit, nobody even sees it. They don't obey it because some go as high as 100. So pleading our case this morning, I'm Jay Gabriel on Keep an Eye. Back to you in the studio.
In front of GBC. Thanks to Alan as well for that earlier report from the Black Star Square Beach. Next, we'll be doing a health check, and CAF will be looking into why people get dizzy and what to do if that happens to you. Breakfast Show is live on GTV. We are taking a quick break, and big, massive birthday shout to Mrs. Betty Angel, head of makeup department. From all of us, we love you, Betty, and we're looking forward to seeing you at work pretty shortly. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back.
Live from GBC Studio 1, this is the Breakfast Show.
Wait, tell me what it. Hey, tell me what. Tell me.
Beer. Hey, ma, worry me. Watch me, you come 1 week, Mr. Oh. Now, yes. Boga, nade.
Senior, name me and you ma cut down my business is a collapse. I'm out of bounds.
So, won't take quick credit in car.
Quick credit?
Yes, quick credit. Who pesika? Edi astati adwuma bi. Wo hia bisia edi atre odwadie mu. Wo ye government and a private worker. Wo pesika de ate hot so. Wo ye bosumi adwuma. Wo hia sika de bibi ntempai so. Quick credit be ma wo loan. E mo atua ne kakra. Na enije sem kese ne se. E collateral free loan susu savings account opening and a deposit asembia no. Ye hia ne se wo Ghana card. 2022 de wanya adwuma na wo na waye wo. Only excuse here. Quick credit was 03022003990 and 05969208833. But see na quick credit check us out.
I am 7 years old.
Beep, beep, beep.
I am 4 years old.
We are 12 years old.
It's been 1 year since I started my antiretroviral treatment.
You can live a long, productive life with antiretroviral treatment. With antiretroviral treatment, HIV-positive expectant mothers can have healthy HIV-negative babies. Go to the nearest health center, test and know your HIV status. If you are positive, ask about antiretroviral treatment and you will receive help. Antiretroviral treatment is your only option for a long and fulfilling life.
This advert is brought to you by the Ghana AIDS Commission and Ghana Health Service.
When you need a shoulder to cry, run on my pamper, so we try to suicide. Yeah, let bygone be bygone. I didn't see what the button gonna do, we go straight to stardom. I'm gonna take you to next level. Oh, baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Energy next level. Back, baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take you to next level. Oh, baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't code next level. Excessive drinking can be detrimental to health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
The show was a jar or bar anyone conquer dim.
Lufat.
In Jija, woman malaria and kawan to them. Lufat, a malaria drop a cup.
And now you may kiss the bride.
Entrance Pharmaceuticals and Research Center. And I Lufat. Lufat, a 2 malaria sententem. FDA.
Live from the capital, this is the Breakfast Show.
Avudufu Madugao. Warming up for our Heritage Month. A dog can break bones but cannot eat metal. Yeah, I'm sure that's the feeling of Chelsea fans this morning. Sorry. Probably feeling very dizzy. And talking of dizziness, that's our conversation on Health Check coming up right after this.
The groom is sick.
What?
Malaria.
Malaria. Lufat. Lufat.
Injija woman malaria enka won to them. Lufat, eye malaria drop a cope.
And now you may kiss the bride.
Entrance Pharmaceuticals and Research Center. And aye Lufat. Lufat, a two malaria sententem. FDA, ashesha agent.
You're watching GTV Breakfast, but sometimes you feel faint, lightheaded, woozy, unsteady. You feel that the whole room is spinning around you. What's going on? And is it normal? Well, here to talk about dizziness, I do have with me Dr. Florence Akumia, who is with the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Florence, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Is feeling dizzy normal?
So it's not normal, because your normal is when you are able to have a good balance, you're not feeling woozy and all the words that you use. So it's not normal, but it can sometimes be benign or not harmful, and some other times it can be harmful.
Okay, let us go through the not harmful episodes of dizziness first, then we talk about the harmful ones.
Okay, so when you look at the systems that control your balance, or the systems that are involved in dizziness, you have the central nervous system, which is the brain, the nerves. You have your cardiovascular system. Sometimes you have your eyes, because you have to see where you are. It helps you with your spatial orientation. And then your ears, especially the inner ear. So this also has some fluid that helps you with your balance, so it helps you to know where your head has been turned towards and all that. And then your joints, because they help you with your position sense. So any disorder affecting any of these can result in dizziness, or you be feeling a bit faint. Okay. So the benign ones could be probably have a middle ear infection. Sometimes some viral infections can cause vestibular neuritis.
What is that?
Okay, so like I mentioned, the vestibulocochlear nerve, that's the 8th cranial nerve. So it's responsible for your balance, or your ear, your balance.
And where is it located? In your ear?
Yes,
okay.
So it's a cranial nerve, so it's in your head.
Okay.
The head is the cranium.
All right.
And the skull is the cranium. Okay. So yes, so if there's any inflammation of it.
Swelling.
Inflammation, so it may involve swelling. May involve, it's an irritation.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's any irritation of it, sometimes due to viral infections, you can get what we call vestibular neuritis.
Okay.
There's other conditions like, we call it a benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. You hear the doctor say BPPV, and it's the fluid in your ears, your inner ears, like I said. When you turn your head in a particular direction, it equilibrates to help you to balance. Okay. Sometimes you can have a stone-like substance, or a calcified substance, crystal, in that space, such that even when you're not moving, it moves around and gives you a sensation like you're moving. So that can also give
to affect your balance.
Yes, it gives rise to what we call vertigo, and it's worse when you move your head in particular directions. Sometimes you can have headaches. There are some headaches that are associated with what we call vestibulopathy or vertigo. That's one of the ways people describe dizziness. or dizziness. So people can describe dizziness in various ways, and this helps us to be able to know where the problem is stemming from.
Okay. How common is dizziness?
It is very common, actually. A lot of people will come with dizziness, and sometimes it's because they really cannot describe what they are feeling. So it just boils down to, I'm dizzy. So you have to probe as a doctor, to get the person to describe exactly what they mean by dizziness, because that's the first question. So what do you mean? How are you feeling?
Is it difficult to find the exact reason?
It can be difficult, but then if you go through the history, so if your patient is able to really describe what they are feeling very well, it can lead you into a particular system. So the goal is that, because we know that a lot of the causes are not harmful, we try to find out if this is a harmful cause or a malignant cause. We try to rule that out first, and then sometimes we take our time to work out the not harmful ones, because sometimes these ones even resolve on their own. So essentially, it can be very difficult to actually get to the underlying cause.
Who is more prone to dizziness in terms of age and maybe gender?
Some elderly people can be prone to dizziness. This may be due to the fact that they are at risk of what we call orthostasis. Okay, so your blood pressure management system, when you get old or you have hypertension and some other diseases like diabetes, we will call something autonomic neuropathy. It affects the nerves, which affect your control of your blood pressure and all that. So sometimes your blood pressure can drop low, and this can give you a woozy feeling. Yes, so elderly people can get it. Sometimes with children who get ear infections, or even young adults who get a lot of ear infections frequently, can also be predisposed to it.
People who have a lot of catarrh and colds, can it affect their stability, balance?
Yes. So some people with sinusitis, so we have what we call sinuses in the head. These are air-filled spaces in their head. And sometimes when they get inflamed, they get filled with fluid that can also give you some sort of woozy feeling.
Are there any other medical conditions that express in dizziness?
A lot of medical conditions can present as dizziness. Like I said earlier on, you can have a stroke, and if it affects a particular part of the brain, you can have some dizziness. You can have middle ear infections. You can have some systemic inflammatory disorders. They are not, they may not be very common, but one is called multiple sclerosis. It can also, it's an inflammatory disorder, so it can affect the nerves also and parts of the brain. And you can also have it with the headaches, like I said, and other anemia. Sometimes when you have anemia, you can have a feeling of lightheadedness or dizziness.
And anemia is?
When your blood level is low.
Okay, all right. And in case you just joined us, well, you're welcome. And my guest is Dr. Florence Akumia. She's with the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. And we're looking at dizziness this morning. If you have any questions you want to ask us, you can send them to us on 055-556-1034. 055-556-1034. So if you are feeling dizzy, unsteady, unstable, woozy, what's the first thing that you want to do?
Okay, so if it's a sudden onset, unprovoked, you may give yourself a bit of time. You probably would sit for a while and then get your bearings before you move, because you can fall. It predisposes you to falls, and then you can get injured. But essentially, if it's something that is persistent or something that is recurring often, you'd want to see your doctor so that they assess it. And what you can do in the meantime is take note of the things that are associated with it, the triggers, what you do that causes you to have those symptoms, or what you do that causes it to resolve, because these are things that may help guide the doctor to know. Or other associated symptoms, like the other day we talked about palpitations. So sometimes these causes of palpitations can cause you to be dizzy. Sometimes you have chest pain, because a heart attack can also cause you to be dizzy, because it sort of reduces the blood flow to the various organs, which include the brain. So it can also cause you to be dizzy. We call something pulmonary embolism, when you have a clot of blood going into the vessels of that supply the lungs. That can also cause you to have what we call pre-syncope or syncope. So this is a form of dizziness. Like I said, it presents in various ways. So if we have some time, I can tell you the various ways people may feel that will describe as dizzy.
Yes, people are watching, great. They want to know.
So the first one I'll describe is vertigo or vertigo. So you have a sensation of movement, like spinning. Either you are spinning around or the room is spinning around you. A lot of people describe it as vertigo. So with that one, it's mainly associated with involuntary movement of your eyes. So it's one of the tests that we would do, and you see that movement is called nystagmus. So oftentimes it is associated with nystagmus.
So are you blinking?
No, you're not blinking. So the eye itself is beating. And so it's giving you a sensation that there's a spinning. So
the eyes are going round or what? Or it's just left and right, up and down?
Yes. It may. So the direction actually will help us to know whether it is a harmless or a harmful cause.
Which one is a harmful one?
So if it's moving in both directions.
Okay, left and right, left and right. Quite fast?
Yes. And then if it is also vertical, a vertical one.
It's also dangerous. So the normal one is what?
So there's not really normal nystagmus. It's not supposed to happen, but then the harmless one or less harmful one is when it's unidirectional and positional.
Okay. And then the other triggers you're talking about. We've talked about the eye movement.
So that's the vertigo. So the next one is disequilibrium or imbalance or unsteady, like you described earlier. You feel like your gait may even be affected, or how you walk may be affected because you're not very sure of your balance.
Could be mistaken for drunkenness, right?
Yeah.
So not all people staggering like that. Not all of them could be drunk. Some of them could be suffering from dizziness, which is a sign of something serious, right?
It could be. So that's why you need to go to the hospital to have it evaluated. Okay, and then the other one is the pre-syncope, like I talked about earlier. It's like a feeling like you're about to black out or you're about to pass out. Sometimes you can actually pass out. So that's also another way people will present, like, I feel like I'm about to pass out. I'm feeling so faint that I feel like I'm about to pass out. And I have to sit down immediately before. And that's another way people may describe it. And some people may not be able to describe it, like they cannot place it. So that's more of a non-specific form of dizziness.
Okay. This has happened to me some time where I got up suddenly and then I felt, dizzy, unstable. What was going on there?
It could be that the sudden movement affected the fluid levels in your inner ear. It could be that there was a slight and sudden drop in your blood pressure from the sudden movement, and especially if maybe you are dehydrated at the time, this may predispose you to such things.
I've read somewhere that when you wake up, you should get out of bed gradually. But if you get up too suddenly, it can get you to be dizzy.
Yeah, if it's too sudden. But you see, that's why it's a whole system. It's supposed, if it is in balance, it's able to correct for the sudden movement. So if it's not in balance, then you start having these symptoms.
So can these things be treated medically? I mean, medication?
Okay, so for some of it depends on the underlying cause. So for some of them, like the BPPV, you have to get the stone out. So with that one, we do some maneuvers, some positional changes, so that it will guide the stone out of the posterior canal.
What are you maneuvering?
It's your head. The position of your head is changed, and it's kept in a position for a number of seconds. And then you change it again. So, you know, the canal is not straight. So you have to turn it for it to move from one point to the other, turn it in another way. You're trying to guide it out of that place. So
is it a bit like when you go to swim and then you have water in your ear and then you keep kind of maneuvering your head to get the water out?
Okay, so this is actually a procedure that is, you have to know how to do it do it. So sometimes patients can be taught and then they do it and they get relief for the symptoms at home. Yeah, but it's not exactly the same as, but the water in the ear sensation, it also affects your balance.
Yes, because I found out that sometimes after swimming, my balance is not that quite great. You're walking around like a drunk guy, but it's because there's probably water in your ear and it's affecting the levels. What's in the ear that keeps the levels going on?
We call it endolymph. So we have some semicircular canals, and we have fluid there. So this fluid is what helps you with your, you know how like a bottle of water, if I move it, the water level changes, okay? So that's what, when I change the level like this, it's the brain now senses the change and tries to reposition it so that it is at a level plane. Okay. So that's what happens. It's for that purpose. Okay. So that if I move my head and the level changes, my body is also able to orient to keep me in balance.
The body is a real miracle. And you're watching GTV. We've got your comments coming up on dealing with dizziness. This morning, my guest is Dr. Florence Akumia with Kolibu Teaching Hospital. And we're looking at, you know, those feelings. You're feeling faint, you're lightheaded, you think the whole world is spinning, or you are spinning in a static world, and you're woozy, you're unsteady. You may not be drunk, you may be dizzy, and for good reason as well. And you've got the benign and the not so benign factors. She's definitely benign, and she's here to give us messages on 055-556-1034. Dalma, what's up?
Cool. On this side, we are all good. You know, it is not the blue side.
No. We're happy.
We are the happy side of the breakfast table. Shout out to all Chelsea fans this morning. You know.
Feeling dizzy.
Messages coming, Dr. Koye, good morning. Here's one. Good morning, GTV. Can fasting cause dizziness, and can hunger, by extension, cause dizziness as well?
Yeah, so it can. Either through the fact that your glucose levels are very low. Some people do a dry fast, they don't eat for a number of days at all.
At all?
Yes, some people do that. Some people do extreme fasts. So they're trying to go morning and night, no eating for a number of days. So your liver has some stores of glucose that it can release when you are hungry and you're yet to eat. But that doesn't last very long. Usually within 24 hours, it can sustain you. But if you fast for a long period, then now your glucose levels are low, you really don't have stores to replenish you, and then you can start feeling like that, especially in the diabetics. If they do not eat and they are going what we call hypoglycemic, which means your sugar levels are low, they can get this woozy sensation, dizziness. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, if you're dehydrated, like you haven't drank enough water, because some people do dry fast where they don't even drink water. So if you're dehydrated, you can also get dizzy.
How do you deal with it? The person says, my papa says I should fast, and then all levels are coming down. How do you deal with the papas?
Well, we have our limits. You can only advise, so we will advise you to.
Okay, so I think you've gone through a number of these: high BP, low BP, causing dizziness. Any infection of any of these sense organs can cause dizziness. So can you get dizzy from an infection to any of your organs?
So I said yes. So like we mentioned earlier.
Alcoholism and constipation.
Hey, constipation.
Constipation. It's very hard for me to say constipation as a cause of dizziness. Maybe whatever is causing the constipation may be associated with dizziness.
But alcoholism is in the list?
Yes.
Okay. Over-exercising is what Frank is asking. Over-exercising can cause dizziness?
If you know how when we were kids you can do the spinning and then afterwards you are dizzy.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah, so if that's what you do, you can have some dizziness associated with it.
Okay, I want to ask, how different is dizziness from nausea?
Okay,
nausea has to do with vomiting, I think.
Sensation to vomit.
Okay.
Yeah, so so the sensation to vomit is nausea, and then when you actually throw up, that's the vomiting.
Okay.
So some causes of dizziness can be associated with nausea, so it can go hand in hand.
Okay. So here's one. Dear BFS, I feel lightheaded when I'm walking by the roadside in the evenings. Is this normal? P.S. I have one ear blocked from an incident from childhood.
Okay, so if he has an ear problem, it could be contributing. But as to the fact that it's only occurring in the evenings, it's hard to explain that.
Okay, I think I'll hand over back to you if no new message. There you go. Kwabena has just come in the nick of time. Good morning, Thelma and Kafui. We didn't see the demonstration by Doc because the topic covered it, please. Yes, we'll attend to that. He's saying that the topic covered the demonstration that the doc was making, so they couldn't see it. But here's another one. Good morning, GTV Breakfast Show. I'm Joel from Tadi. Please tell Kafui to tell the doctor that she do all. I want her number, please. Please, we don't do matchmaking. Yeah. Good morning, Cap, Tom and Doc. Sometimes I feel dizzy when my head aches and feel so pale. When I sometimes try to sit down for a while, I start to sweat a lot. After a while, when I'm sitting, then cold later on. What can I do? Mr. Dashing Mastermind. People have names, so from Mr. Dashing Mastermind is asking.
Okay, so Mr. Mastermind, you have a host of things going on with you. You have headaches, which can cause you to be dizzy. And you also say you feel pale. I don't know what you mean by you feel pale. Or if you feel, you see your palms are looking more pale than it used to. It could be a sign of anemia. So I think for you, you should go to the hospital and have yourself assessed.
Okay, so when in doubt, go to the hospital and seek the expert's opinion. I'll hand over back to you, Kaf.
All righty. Thank you very much. Thelma.
You're welcome.
So to come up the sports, and so those of you who were dizzy by yesterday's games, please don't watch the sports, all right? Okay, so we've pretty much covered everything that you have to talk about with respect to dizziness. I mean, what do you want people to take away from this conversation about dizziness?
Okay, so I know that sometimes people complain of dizziness and you may think that the doctor or the health worker is overlooking your symptoms. I would want to reassure you that you are feeling what you're feeling. And so if it's a bother, you should continue to go to the hospital and have yourself assessed. And you should also be ready to hear that this is not harmful. Of course, if something is going wrong in your body, you'd want to know why it's happening or you not feel comfortable. So you should understand that it's not always harmful and it may take some time to resolve. Some of them, like the BPPV, does not improve with treatments like medications. You have to get the stone out, and that may take some time. So it will take a lot of, and sometimes you may require what you call rehabilitation of the vestibular system. So it may take a while for the dizziness to resolve. The good thing is that a lot of times it will resolve on its own. So you may not be given medications, but after a few days, you will find out the symptoms have resolved.
The fasting one is quite important to me because you are dealing with somebody's beliefs and they believe that they need to fast for whatever reason, purification or spiritual exercise. But this fasting can actually harm them.
Yes, so I'm sure there are some religious leaders listening to the show. So what you can do is that you can let the person do what is within their capabilities. So if the person fasts for 12 hours and is able to tolerate that, but when it goes to 18 hours, the person starts feeling dizzy, getting lightheaded and all that, you could tell the person to fast for 12 hours as opposed to a 24-hour fast. And you doing the fast too should be responsible for yourself. If you're doing something that is causing problems to you, you might want to reconsider.
Do they listen to your advice?
It's hard sometimes, but we do our best, and some people do listen. Some people are open-minded. It's not as if the doctor is against your religious belief or your religious practices, but we don't want it to harm you, because everything is permissible, but not everything is profitable.
The doctors too, they know the word, though. So don't be thinking that, oh, they are trying to keep you away from your spiritual heights that you want to ascend to through your fasting. Remember that the fasting is good, but it can get you to be dizzy, and then dizziness can take you to a whole new level of things that you do not want to happen. Final words on dizziness for us before you take leave of us?
I think I have wrapped it up already.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Florence Akubia from Kolebu Teaching Hospital has dealt with dizziness this morning, and I hope you are well up to date, up to speed. You can get a playback of this conversation on Facebook and on YouTube. And for those of you who are leaving, going to work, and you think, oh, I'm missing this, we have a playback of this show 11 p.m. on the day that it airs in the morning. At 11 p.m., you will get a playback of it. Shouts to our friends at the Landing Restaurant, where we recorded an interview a couple of weeks back, and one of them watches the show religiously at night at 11 p.m. Florence, thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
And still to come, we've got the headlines. One of my guests is already here, Dr. Kweku Anani Jinde. He's a corporate governance expert. I'm sure he has thoughts on issues of Shraj, PPA boss, and refunding of some good money to the state. I'm sure you'll also be talking about Russia and Ukraine and the German link in this whole business. So that's the headlines coming up at 7:15. We'll be unpacking the Russia-Ukraine conflict and catching up with our good friend Joseph Youngson. Remember, on Thursday and on Friday, we spoke to him. He was located in a bunker in a city in Ukraine. We want to find out what's happening, what are the prospects for him leaving that bunker and coming home. So that will be something we'll be dealing with in the next hour. And then Bethel Revival Choir will bless us this morning on the show. Our WhatsApp number is 055-556-1034. Let me repeat the proverb again for the Chelsea fans, okay? Avudufu, Maduagao. A dog can break bones but cannot eat metal. I felt so worried anytime the black players came up to play. Although I support any team that plays against Chelsea, I was very concerned for the black boys in Chelsea, you know, Lukaku and all those guys, because you know how the media is in England. Black guy makes a mistake and it's like the whole world is on him. So I'm glad they all scored, but I'm glad Liverpool won. And for a Man U supporter, that's a very painful thing to say. And talking of Liverpool, here comes Maltiti, who supports the Reds, and she's bringing you with the Breakfast Sports. You stay with us. This is GTV Breakfast. My name is Kaf. Now.
Thank you for staying on. This is Breakfast Sports. I am Maltiti Saida Sadiq. A special good morning to the Blues. We'll be bringing you the Ghana Premier League highlights, also the Carabao Cup final and other stories. There's tennis too. Let's start off with the Ghana Premier League, and the second round of the 2021-2022 Ghana Premier League season started on Friday, February 25th after a week break. The league took a break after the first round of games were played, with Asante Kotoko and Hearts of Oak using their break period to play the matchday 7 outstanding clash. Upon the league's resumption, Wafa hosted King Faisal in Sogakope on Friday to kickstart the weekend's games. On Saturday, Gianna Stars also battled Kerala United for all 3 points at the Nana Ajiman Bedu Stadium. Kotoko also welcomed Dreams FC to the Baba Yara Stadium on Sunday, while Ashanti Gold came up against 11 Wonders at home. Etwelga's Asante Kotoko double breaks Dreams FC in Kumasi. Let's look at the highlights now.
Will have its fair share of the action as current league leaders welcome Dreams FC. Bounces on it, can he get a drive in? Off target.
But turned to danger, and there was Ali Husaf and did very well. Shrug off that tackle from Mubarak.
And there they are. Here comes Ali Husaf. Husaf lays on the pass. Issa can do much better. Good goalkeeping from Danlad. Beating on that occasion, but again, it's Mubarak Yusuf to the rescue. Meanwhile, 45 minutes of action is up. Alrighty, welcome back to the Baba Yara Stadium. And of course, if you are not home, you can watch it anywhere. Another opportunity coming the way of Ali Husaf.
Ejeri Boati with a wonderful delivery here. I mean, he has no business hitting the ball way over the crossbar.
The flag of their daring club. He still can't separate the two sides. It's a decent cross this time. Oh, lovely save, Gustin Kumsen. Opportunity that he's been waiting for. Frank Mbella appeals for the penalty. Penalty kick to Kotoko is Kumsen against Frank Etuga Mbella. Yes!
super penalty.
An opportunity coming the way of Kotoko against the goalpost, and yes, goal number 2.
Such no danger, but just look at it here after the ball struck the post.
It's on the field. That's goal number 3
from Ituga. Here.
This game is live on. There we go. That's the kickoff. Now Ado, an audacious try, and Atta would not take chances. Muntari's corner in, and this is the first goal for the Phobians. Sule Ali Muntari provides the assist, and it's Isaac Mensah connecting to Sule Muntari's corner. The Phobians are up by 1-0, and all of them go to hail Sule Muntari, although Mensah.
And here you see it, Muntari's ball from the corner kick. It's invited by the defending, question marks about the defending from.
Back to Muntari, sends the ball in. Barnier is not communicating, and he flops a glorious opportunity. Daniel Afriye Barnier.
Lagos' defense not set to deal with it. The clearance is poor.
Long ball in. They won 6 times, and they're looking for their second goal. Brilliant save from Esu.
Brilliant save, really is.
Stay on. Constant save from goalkeeper William Esu to deny Daniel Afriye Barnier.
Yeah, when his longest reach.
He gets to Koji. There's a gift for Koji. Brave goalkeeping from Esso to deny Koji. And they find the equalizer. Osman Amadou breaks Phobian hearts in stoppage time as he finds the equalizer.
Looking to Sheldon, and the ball pops up to Amadou. And all Amadou had to do was put it down the laces.
Well, Sule Muntari is really staging a comeback there, as you can see. Let's look at the league table now. And the bottom 3 are 11 Wonders with 19 points, Wafa with 18 points, and Elmina Sharks with 12 points. You have Dreams FC 23 points, Legon Cities have 22, Ashanti Gold also have 22 points, RTU, the Lions of the North, have 20 points, Bibiani Gold Stars 20, Accra Lions 20. We'll look at the games that were played over the weekend from Friday to yesterday, Sunday. King Faisal beat Wafa by 2-1. Hearts of Oak and Legon Cities, when they locked hands, it was a 1-1 win, and Adriana Stars took on Karela United and beat them by 2-0 on Sunday. Asante Kotoko beat Dreams FC by 2-0. Ashanti Gold was beating by 11 Wonders 4-1. Brekum Chelsea beat Bibiani Gold Stars by 1-0. Elmina Sharks and Accra Lions had a tie with a 1-1 win. Mediama SC beat Bechem United by 1-0. Today, Great Olympics, Oledade will be playing the Lions of the North, Real Tamale United. Also, the other fixtures that will be coming up in the Ghana month, the month of March, will be Accra Lions taking on Great Olympics. Bechem United will take on Asante Kotoko. Bibiani Gold Stars to take on Mediama SC. All this on the Sunday, 6th March 2022. Dreams FC will take on Elmina Sharks. Hearts of Oak Phobia will take on Wafa. Karela United versus Ashanti Gold. King Faisal versus Adriana Stars. And Lions of the North again, RTU, will take on Legon Cities FC. On Monday, 7th March, the day after the Independence Parade, 11 Wonders will take on Brekum Chelsea. Now the total energy Kafui is standing by to bring you headlines with his guests. Stay with us.
Live from GBC Studio 1, this is the Breakfast Show.
2021 to 2021, the journey to our centenary has been amazingly worthy. Azar Group is 100 years and continues to achieve greatness.
Main brands which were in the company are Azar Tex, which is an emulsion paint, Texture Paints, which we were the first people to produce it in Ghana, and Azar Gloss, which is oil paint. We were the first people to produce the carpenter's glue. Now we have new products like silicone paint.
Join Azar Group celebrate 100 years and to create another brilliant 100 years together.
Over there. Hey, ha, ha, hey. And man, then cry. Tabia takum, wedi a memma yedro no, a me anya hoden, ane hoden ye, aye memma dro, anu ti na berma bia hia bi no, aye memma dro ma berma bia wedi mfie di wotwe ko. Bi opedi du etu aton bia, enko chemical shops, pharmaceuticals, ane herbal shops bia. E wo Ghana hanum be bia. Anase fraying, e wo 0243 686861 and 0245 749206.
FDA ajisa echodi nkatu yatu.
Kaise tabia takum ye, bembe bia ye takum.
Good morning, my neighbor.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast. Not just any breakfast. Sizzling healthy.
Yeah, all the time. Okay, let's take a peek. I brought my spine.
There are certain things that we do to help the children with.
Beautiful sounds of Bisake Day. Give it to Baba. Bringing us to 7:21 right here on GTV Breakfast. Our WhatsApp number is 055-556-1034. And somebody just sent in a message after the doctor had left. Does broken heart cause dizziness? I asked that question, and according to our colleague here, he says broken heart causes every sickness you can think of in the world. You know, every sickness, you name it, is there. Constipation, headaches, foot rot, everything. Broken heart, it don't be small. You have to feel it to know it. If you don't get it, you won't get it. Welcome to the show. We're looking at the big headlines around the world. Ukraine is a big headline, and Ghanaian citizens will be touching down from Ukraine today. It's a big conversation on that in the next hour. You want to stay here. We'll be catching up with Joseph Youngson, a Ghanaian student who's been reporting to us from an underground bunker over a couple of days last week. We'll find out what the situation is right now with him, and then the experts who will talk to us about the context to this whole conversation. There are issues of corporate governance and possible returning of millions of cedis and happenings inside Parliament. My guest is Dr. Kweku Anani Jinde. He's a corporate governance expert and a lecturer at the Gimpa Law Faculty. He also teaches at UPSA as well. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
It's been a tumultuous last week, because the last time we saw you, the Ukraine-Russia was just and then on Thursday, boom. And the papers, we in Ghana are concerned because of our people who live there and work there and are studying there. And so there are a couple of papers have taken the headlines on Ukraine. So Daily Graphic looks at Ukraine-Russia conflict. 24 Ghanaians arrived today, 460 evacuated. Ghanaian Times, Ghana plans to evacuate citizens, says the foreign minister. And those are the big stories so far. What are your comments on what's happening in Ukraine? And for your people who are in Germany, how are they seeing this particular conflict?
Well, thank you very much, Kafui. Let me just say a very good morning to your viewers all over the world. My friend in Chicago is also watching. Good. My friend Kwame, SBI Japan.
Wonderful.
They are all watching, and my students, they are all watching. Thank you very much for the opportunity. You see, it appears we are all just looking at the surface of this crisis in Ukraine. You see, we got here because there were certain antecedents. Certain things led to the present situation. I'll explain why. You know, Russia used to be a superpower. In the 50s, 60s, there were two superpowers, United States of America and then Russia. And then in the early 1989, thereabout, the Soviet Union disintegrated. So if you want to understand the present crisis, we have to go back. You know, when Gorbachev, Yeltsin came to the scene, Russia almost became like a laughingstock in the eyes of the international community. So this is an empire that became a superpower, and then between 80, 82, 83, up to 89, it lost that stature. It lost the superpower status that it enjoyed. You know, at that time, we described it as a bipolar world between, that is the United States and then Russia. These were the two superpowers at that time. All of a sudden, the whole Soviet Union disintegrate, and then we had countries like Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, which were all part of the Eastern Bloc. They all disintegrated. And Yeltsin came, and then Russia became more or less like a laughing stock in the eyes of the international community. So at that time, people were looking up to a leader who assert the authority of Russia on the international stage. And that's how Putin came in. You know, he became president, became prime minister, then became president. So these are the dynamics. So Putin's position is that an old empire, which became a superpower, cannot all of a sudden descend into that low status in the eyes of the international community. So he's trying to reassert the former superpower status of Russia. So that is why some of these things that is engaging in, if you don't understand the dynamics, what went on, and what he hopes to achieve for Russia, you may get the whole dynamics wrong. So he's trying to assert a Russia that has been sort of disgraced, denigrated, brought to its knees. He's trying to reassert the superpower status of Russia.
By invading another country?
Just wait. You see, and you also realize that most of the countries around Russia, especially Ukraine, most of them, because they've accepted democratic principles, free press, free market economy. You see, the prosperity there at the doorstep of Russia, Putin sees it as a bad influence on his own citizen. So what do I do? In order to stop the spread of these so-called democratic ideals, prosperity, free press, he wants to stop that from being an influence on the population of Russia.
Is he succeeding?
Now, I don't think he's succeeding. And apart from that, we mustn't also forget that Russia, in terms of their economic performance, is in a very bad shape now. So there are internal conflicts. People are beginning to question. People are beginning to ask why their neighbors in Ukraine should enjoy certain basic rights which they cannot have. So in terms of the economy, the Russian economy at the moment is not in a very good shape. So other analysts think that the invasion of Ukraine is just an attempt to divert attention from the realities and the economic difficulties in Russia. And you know, he started that about in 2014 when he sponsored a group to break away from Ukraine. And last week also, he just recognized those people as independent states. And you see, to follow up, it's a long-term plan. And to follow it up, he signed this agreement that, well, those people think that they are being threatened by Ukraine. So he had the legitimate right to go and support those people. But if you do international law, before you can intervene in the affairs of any state through a use of force, first it must be authorized by the United Nations Security Council.
Which it is not.
Which is not. Or it should be at the invitation of that state.
Which they didn't do.
But that the so-called separate breakaway state, are they states in the real sense who have the capacity to invite a foreign country into the territory of Ukraine? No, they are not. Or there must be a very serious humanitarian need which requires intervention. Even if that humanitarian need is established, it has to be sanctioned by the United Nations per Chapter 7. But all these things have not happened. So for all intent and purposes, what Putin is doing is purely in breach of international law. But he's there now. What do we do? I think that certain measures have been taken, but whether they go far enough is another thing.
Well, it seems that the attack is on the economic front, and the currency ruble is
down by 30%.
Value. Yes, and they are cutting them out of the international banking system.
Exactly.
And even sending weapons to Ukraine to counter.
Yeah, this is what makes it interesting, especially a country like Germany. You know, after the Second World War, they did not want to engage their soldiers in any war whatsoever. But they changed the constitution in about 2001 or so, whereby their soldiers were allowed to go into war-torn areas only on humanitarian basis. They are not supposed to engage in combat. And they also decided that German-made weapons should not be used in a situation of war.
But they've just sent some recently.
But the situation we find in Ukraine now, they've made a very major policy reversal. That German-made weapons can be used. And they themselves, they are supplying them with some weapons now. So this whole thing has brought a whole lot of changes in the way we looked at international security, international peace, and then whatever. So I think where we have reached now, the sanctions, economic sanctions, okay, but whether those can stop, those sanctions can stop Putin from going ahead with that big agenda that he has, is another question.
A couple of quick notes before we talk about the impact on Ghana and our people there. Today I heard the Brazilian president mocking the Ukrainian president, wondering whether their country could survive under the leadership of a former comedian. Because you know he was a comedian before he won the election. And he comes up with these videos trying to ginger his people. Americans offered him a way out of the country, and he says, look, he doesn't want a ride, he wants arms. you reckon that people have confidence in their president?
Well, I think before you can earn the confidence of any group of people, before they can have that confidence, you have to earn it. You know, by his the way he conducted himself, it had been any other leader in Africa. He would have taken the opportunity.
Take me out, take me out.
Take me out, and then you have some cheese and then burgers in America. But he said, no,
I'm here.
I'm the leader of my people. So if we all have to go down, we have to go down together. But if he had done that, it means he's abandoning his people in the midst of crisis. So I think it's good that he stayed back. So it means the West must also support him, not that with not that with sanctions or whatever. They must also be up and doing in terms of real arms, and if necessary, the Ukrainian president can also call for military intervention, which can only be sanctioned by the United Nations Security Council. And you know, when it gets there, China and Russia will veto it. This also brings to fore the defect in the international system, because we have we have almost 190 countries, and only 5 countries, one of them can just decide to stop whatever we want to do as a people. And remember, it is only the United Nations Security Council whose decisions are binding and have any legal effect. But the General Assembly is just a sample of the world public opinion. It does not have any effect.
Ghana is sitting on the Security Council now for a year, and we voted yes to condemn the action that is happening in Ukraine. What was the effect of that vote, and what do you think our foreign policy guidelines were that supported this decision? I asked this question to the Minister for Foreign Affairs yesterday. Did not get a response. But what do you think?
Well, I think everybody, you see, you always have to try to be on the side of history. But in trying to do that, you ask yourself whether it will promote and then project your national interest. Whether that position will project and promote our national interest, I don't know. But what we know is that the whole international community is rising up against Russia now. There are demonstrations all over the world. And you know, if you are executing any war, public opinion is also very important. You have to carry public opinion along. But I think that public opinion is gradually gaining momentum across the world.
Okay.
But whether that one is enough to stop Putin from to stop him from what he's doing is your guess is as good as mine.
Let's look at the countries that voted yes to condemn Russia, for them to stop the action in Ukraine. So United States, yes. United Kingdom, yes. France, yes. Those are the top 3 permanent members of the Security Council. Then we had Norway, Ireland, Albania, Gabon, Mexico, Brazil, Ghana, Kenya. They all voted yes. Russia vetoed, so they are the only no. But the abstentions are what are most interesting to me. China, India, United Arab Emirates, they abstained.
Yeah. Well, I think, you see, this should draw the attention of the international community of the imbalances in the United Nations. Because 5 Security Council members, at the time that the charter was drawn, we are not independent state, so we're not at the table to be part of the negotiation. But it's almost 50, 60, 70 years now. Don't you think that it is time we looked at the nature, the composition of the power structures within the United Nations? But I think since Obasanjo's time, and Kwame, even up to Kwame Nkrumah, we have been fighting that we need to reform the United Nations system so that other countries also be part of the UN Security Council. But all these attempts have been blocked. So it means you have just 5 groups of people who decide whether the 190 countries can do something or they cannot do something.
And one of them can veto and just scupper everything.
Just one can veto it. So I think it is high time we looked at the structure of the United Nations. But whether it will work or not, I think it's not realistic. Because those who are holding the powers, the power brokers within the United Nations, they don't want to hand over the power. They don't want to give it out.
No, power is not relinquished easily.
No, they don't want to give it out so easily. Yeah. And I think this also, you see, a similar thing happened before we invaded Iraq. United Nations even there was no UN resolution. But
they went ahead
Britain and then United States of America went. And they call it the coalition of the willing. Although it was not authorized by the United Nations per Chapter 7, they still went ahead. So sometimes when we are talking about some of these things, we have to be fair. You see, you cannot condemn something today, and then when it happens to another person, you change your tune and you change your the way you look at it. You see, the whole international system is very unfair.
Yeah.
And then you see, you can only exercise this power if you have the economic might and then the military might to support it. But unfortunately, we in the developing world, we don't seem to have that.
We don't have it. Let's be blunt. We're not strong.
No, we don't seem to have it. Have just been a little bit
the Chinese built our AU headquarters in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
We rely on foreign assistance for a lot of things. We don't have the power. We have to be blunt.
Even our budget.
Yes. There's support. Donor support.
Yeah, so,
and grants and aids and things like that.
It's high time we also build our economy so that we can also be in a position to speak our mind.
Okay.
You know, if you go to the United Nations, before even the meetings, there's a lot of diplomatic moves to determine how you should vote, where you should vote, you know, and it comes with a lot of perks. And I don't think the voting that took place that day, they just voted for nothing. A lot of behind-the-scenes negotiations, pegging, promises of projects, development, they all went in before the vote took place. This is what we know happens at the United Nations.
Fantastic.
It's all a question of money.
It's a question of money. Might is right. We'll be having a full-scale, extensive conversation on this topic in the next hour with our analysts, and then that Ghanaian student who is in Ukraine, who's been reporting so diligently and fearlessly for us since last Thursday when the escalation of the conflict reached that invasion level. You're watching GTV Breakfast. Your thoughts on Ukraine, Russia, Putin, Zelensky, USA, Ghana on the Security Council. When I posted that that information, I said, hey, when did Ghana get to the Security Council? Is it a joke? So no, you watch the news. It was announced here on GBC. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So your comments, would love to have them. 055-556-1034. Moving away from Russia, let's look at corporate governance issues and Public Procurement Authority, because it's in the news. Daily Graphic and Ghanaian Times are reporting on it. Pay 5.7 million cedis to state. Shraj directs former PPA boss, and the Ghanaian Times reports it as former PPA boss banned 10 years from holding public office, directed by Shraj to refund some money. Well, Ghanaian Times says 5.6 million, and Graphic says 5.7. Which is which? But bottom line is that the man is going to have to give back a lot of money. We're talking about Ajenim Boateng Ejay, who was the former boss of the Public Procurement Authority, and he has to pay back that money within 6 months. So by August, the money must hit the account of the Consolidated Fund, and the receipt evidencing payment produced before the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, failure of which the Commission shall take the necessary action to recover money from Mr. J's known properties and assets. So there's a background to this involving money that couldn't be accounted for with this gentleman, and the investigations have come up with these conclusions. So these are findings from a petition submitted by the Ghana Integrity Initiative to the Commission in 2019 after a contract for sale expose by journalist Manasseh Awuni Azuri. So he talked about huge sums of cash deposits made into Mr. J's account, amounting to 5.697530 cedis. And out of the total deposit made into his account, Mr. J was able to explain sources of only 86,000, resulted in charges directed to refund to the state the stated amount. Dr. Anani Jinde, you are a corporate governance person. What are your comments on this particular case and the ruling that has emanated from Shraj?
You see, Kafui, you see, these are the examples of the corporate governance defects we have in our system. You see, from the story that the board engaged in what we call restrictive tendering. Others call it sole sourcing. You know, restrictive tendering or sole sourcing can be done when there's an emergency situation, where you can establish that only that person has the knowledge and expertise to provide that service. Then you can restrict it. Or if we don't do it, something untoward may happen. That is where you apply. So it is the exception rather than the rule. But this is what happened. And the governing board approved that without any justification. They didn't provide any justification for approving that restrictive tendering process. And I think if you have people who understand good corporate governance practices and they have independent minds and they appreciate the importance of good corporate governance, they will not do that. They wouldn't do that because this is the legal position. Even apart from the law, what are the important corporate governance practices and principles? But it did not happen. And secondly, this gentleman also used his position to tender for certain projects within the company. That one is not wrong. The Companies Act of 2019 allows that if you are a member of, if you are part of the management team or a member of the board, and you are interested in a particular project, you can tender, but you have to disclose your interest.
Talking of interest, let me read a line out of the Ghanaian Times. So, Shraj in the reports found that on 2 occasions, Mr. J used his office as Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority to improperly alter the decisions of the board of PPA in favor of Talent Discovery Limited, a company in which he has personal interest.
Let me finish with the point that I'm making.
Yeah, because
so
when you talked about interest, that's why I brought this out.
You see, the law allows that if you are a member of the board or management and there's a project and you want to tender, you have to disclose that I'm tendering for this project. But when it comes to the decision in respect of that transaction, you have to excuse yourself.
Recuse. Get out.
Yes, this is the legal position. And apart from that, if he decided to reverse the decision of a governing board, excuse me, so what is the board doing? So the CEO is more powerful than the board. But in terms of any corporate governance structure, the board is at the top. Okay. And the board takes strategic decisions which the management will implement on day-to-day basis. But if a CEO can reverse the decision of a whole board, then we have a problem. We have a problem because sometimes you only do that if you think that you have some power behind you. So that's why the question of appointing CEOs becomes very critical. Because if somebody feels that he's so powerful, he can override the decision of a whole board without thinking of the consequences, then we have a problem. That's why in some jurisdictions, if a position becomes vacant, whether CEO, it is open so that people with the necessary experience, expertise, and knowledge, they come and then they go through the normal appointment process. If you are giving, you are giving. You are not giving because you pay some money for the campaign in 2020 or 2021. So if people are appointed on the basis of their qualification, experience, and their knowledge, some of these things will not happen. But that gentleman, I think he reversed the decision of a whole board because he thinks there's some power behind him.
Now Shraj has shown him where the power lies.
Show him his level.
His level, eh?
So I think this should go to bring our attention to the need of good corporate governance. Because remember, during the recent banking crisis, you know how much we spent?
How much?
To bail the banks. We spent not less than 13 billion to bail the banks. You see, all as a result of the fact that the corporate governance we had in place did not function properly. So that if you have to use my money to bail a failed or failing company, don't you think that I have the right to ask that the proper governance system should be in place? But you see, what is most interesting is that, Kafui, when these private companies, when they make money, they keep it for themselves. But when they make losses, you and I are called to bail them out. So we say you privatize gains and you socialize losses,
and
which is wrong.
It should not happen.
It should not happen.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that Dr. Anna Nijinde is sitting across the table from me and talking about this, because he eats corporate governance for breakfast, lunch, supper, and snacks. So thank you very much for your comments. We will now switch over to another important conversation, because yes, on the 24th of February, which was the anniversary of the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, that is when Russia decided to do their own thing. Today is another big anniversary as far as Ghana is concerned, because today is 28th February 2022, which is 74 years to the famous 28th February Crossroads incident that took place in 1948 and cost the lives of 3 veterans who were fighting for the Queen or the King back then in colonial times. My colleague Daryl Alan Tego is on the line right now to tell us how this day is being marked. Of course, it's appropriate because we have to honor our heroes. What is being done? How is it being marked? Alan, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning, Kafui, and good morning, Ghana. This is hashtag GTV Breakfast. Welcome all viewers to the Freedom Monument in Osu, in the Greater Accra region. As you mentioned earlier, it is the 74th anniversary celebration or commemoration of the 28th February Crossroads shooting, Christian Crossroads shooting. A philosopher once said, a nation which does not honor its heroes is not worth dying for. And so it is proper and appropriate that we remember this day and remember and honor also the memory of these ex-servicemen who were harmless, armless, and were only marching for what is their right, being unhappy about a certain gratuity that was awarded them after the Second World War when they had fought on behalf of the colonial master. So at this Monument Park this morning will be the Vice President as well as some dignitaries and military as well as all other service representations. Typical among them will also be the Veterans Association of Ghana. By way of background, let me quickly bring us up to speed, especially for those of us who this day will be one of the many celebrations and the significance will probably be lost. Historically, the 28th February Christian Crossroads shooting incident is celebrated every year to honor the defenseless ex-servicemen who in 1948 were killed in cold blood by the colonial police while they were marching peacefully to the Osu Christian Castle to submit a petition. During the Second World War, such soldiers of the Gold Coast Regiment, the Royal West African Frontier Forces, fought alongside the Allied forces. At the end of the war, there was increased agitation by anti-colonial movements for independence for the colonies in Southeast Asia and Africa. The war veterans who had fought so gallantly and had received high commendation were demobilized at the war and paid a pittance by way of war gratuity, just about 1 shilling a day. The ex-servicemen, therefore, were naturally not happy with the gratuity. They thought the British government, which then ruled the Gold Coast, would, in appreciation of their sacrifices that had been made, pay gratuities in the right proportion to those sacrifices. In addition to this, several appeals were made by the soldiers to the authorities, or several appeals made by the soldiers to the authorities fell on deaf ears. And so on that fateful Saturday morning of the 28th of February 1948, these gallant heroes of our nation marched to the Christian Castle in an attempt to submit their petition for a consideration of their gratuities to be proportionate to their services. Unfortunately, there was the order to fire on these ex-service men who were defenseless. And 3 of these men fell at this crossroads, the 28th February road, where this monument is built. Among them are Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Atipo, and Private Odate Lamte. This monument, the view you have currently is the monument built in their honor, and these today is especially marked to celebrate their contribution. And so in a very short space of time, The dignitaries who have been invited to grace the occasion will be taking their seats, and the Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia, will be joining them to mark this commemoration day in the history of Ghana. It is the 74th anniversary of the 28th February Crossroad Christianburg shooting incident which took place in our dear country. These men, though have fought for this nation, have not been forgotten, and their memory is definitely with us and would live with us until such a time when my generation, your generation, CAF, all of us are not here. It doesn't mean it will end with us, but surely their memory will still go on, and Ghana will continue to remember them for all their contributions towards Ghana. And I must also place on record that out of this, even the agitation for independence became more critical, and so therefore somehow increased the agitation for independence. And so if you remember the Big Six, behind the scenes lay some heroes who have not been forgotten completely, but are not mentioned as much as the Big Six, championed by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, is mentioned when we come to write our history.
Thank you very much, Daryl Alan Tego, reporting to us live from the grounds where the 74th anniversary of the 28th February Crossroads shooting incident is being marked. Special guest being the Vice President of Ghana, Dr. Bawumia, to be in attendance. The 1948 riots, a big deal. And there's a book I'm reading right now on that particular topic, 1948 riots, by Andrew Ofwe Amegache, who's a lawyer, journalist. And it's a historical record that I am sure Dr. Anana Jinde would probably want to lay his hands on to read. And you're definitely not alone, because we've been joined by our good friend BOT, Bernard Udru Tichi, Regional Coordinator for the Commonwealth Alliance for Young Entrepreneurs, West Africa entrepreneur, former participant in the district level governance of Ghana. Good to have you both here. Yes, and we shall never forget the gentlemen who passed, Atipo and Ajete and Lamte. Right. Your thoughts on how we recognize our heroes, Bernard?
Kafu, let me say good morning to your viewers. And I have one passionate appeal to make to the government of Ghana. They should really complete the Sunyani airport. It's very disturbing when you have to travel 7 hours just to Accra, that you could use just an hour to do that. We are playing with the government through the Aviation Ministry and Ghana Airport Company Limited. It's over 5 years now. Just a domestic airport cannot become. Every government comes, they play politics with it. The ex-government did the same thing, and current government is playing kind of politics with it. And, you know, it is stifling business activity to the Bono Half and the Bono East region. So I'm pleading with the government. I'm on the national television. The Sunyani Airport ought to be completed, because it will take just an hour by flight from Accra to Sunyani. Then it is 7-hour drive from Accra here to Sunyani here. Back to the point about how we celebrate our heroes. One of the doyens in democracy said that any society that fails to celebrate its heroes is a stale one. And one thing I realized that most of the people who died, some names weren't captured in the historical book. And anytime you are doing a revolution or staging a coup or embarking on an uprising, there are people who are behind the scene and their names never showed up. In those student days when we were in the Commonwealth and those times when we were fighting against a lot of government policies, there were people who were backbencher planners. They would plan the whole thing and few people's names to be put out there. And that is one thing I see that is quite missing in the political landscape. The very few names we see, there are more unseen faces and unseen hands that we don't even know. And even for the very few that we know, the state is not celebrating them the way we should. If you come to Ghana today, the very few names you remember are the Atipo, the Sajinajete, and the rest. Then you flip it to the other side, the Big Six. But I can tell you, if you look at behind the Big Six, there were other more people. People who were the planners, who were the executioners, who were the think tanks. Those people's names don't show up. And that is what history does. So for me, yes, I do believe that beside the fact that the world is going on IT level, we should make the study of history a critical point. And we should not adulterate the history. The history should be as it was. People who really fought, laid their life down, they lost their property, some even used their own personal investment to fight for the independence of Ghana. Talk of even Kwame Nkrumah. People have started the whole the pre-colonial agenda. They brought him down here. Of course, I still maintain that Nkrumah remains more like the main protagonist in our fight towards independence. But there were people who laid down their property, their investment, their lives, their savings towards fighting for this. And even some of them were even traditional leaders. If you read these books you are holding, you realize that there were some traditional leaders who used their traditional outfits. And those times, you know, the British were very kind of smart. They deployed the indirect rule. Unlike the French and the rest, they would go direct. The British were like, okay, if we want to come to your home, let's use the gate men. So the traditional outfit in Ghana became more like the conduit through which the British deployed their means of, colonialism. But these chiefs, some of them stood out. They used their regalia, their outfit, all they had to fight for independence. So yes, it is. I'm very happy today the Vice President to be there because per the Constitution of Ghana, he is the chairman of the Ghana Police Council and a lot of other security councils. He chairs them on behalf of the state. Whilst he does this, let's also remember that there are other more people that history has forgotten. Let's fish those people out and let the family members of those people feel that it is worth dying for Ghana.
Fantastic. Have Messrs. Odatilante, Ajete, and Atipo been celebrated enough? 74 years after they lost their lives on this day in 1948?
No, I don't think so. And as a state, we've not been very fair to the memory of these gallant men who were brave enough to face the British colonialists. I think we've not done that. So an event like this, it should just not be the end. It should be the beginning, so that we'll continue to celebrate and recognize the critical role they played in terms of ensuring that the independent movement gathers some momentum. And then I would go further to say that in whatever we do, our present generation, in whatever we do, we must be guided by the reality that some people laid their lives for this country. So we mustn't take what we have today for granted. Some people laid their lives for this country. So in whatever you do, in whatever capacity you find yourself, think of the people who died for this country so that today we enjoy the freedoms that we are enjoying.
We have to think about those.
Let us recognize that, so that whatever we do, the national interest should be supreme, instead of our individual or partisan interest. Because this country did not just, we did not just get independent just by the flick of the finger. People struggled, people died for their convictions. So that is why I expect that the present generation of politicians, we should not just do politics of convenience because it is convenient for our political party. It is convenient for me as an individual. It is convenient for my region. It is convenient for whatever. Let us always try to put the national interest first. Because why? People have died fighting for you and I to be free today. And to add to what Bernard has just said, you see, politicians from the Bruno region, starting from the time of J.H. Mensah, Owusa Champon, Boachi Jan, Asedun Ketia, and Sumachireme, and they've all failed us. They've all failed the region. I'm tempted to think that when they have access to power, they think of themselves. Because look at the number of people we produce from the region. But we can't have, even if I want to go to Kintampo now.
How do you go?
Well, sometimes I drive with my car, or sometimes I go with VIP.
If you drive, how long does it take you?
Sometimes, because my car drives a little bit faster.
Yes.
If I want to go and I want to get there, I leave here 3 o'clock in the morning, just to avoid the traffic in Kumasi.
And then?
So that by 11, 12 o'clock, I will be in Kintampo.
So it's a 10-hour, 9-hour, 8-hour, 9-hour journey.
But if you go with the bus, it's about 14 hours.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
So I can tell that our political leaders from the region, they've all failed us. They J.H. Mensah, Opokwa Champons, Boachi,
what side?
the former national organizer of NDC.
Yabuatijan.
Yabuatijan. And Sumacheme. And whatever, all of them, they feel that.
What could they have done, really?
But they are in government. And then the President Minister for Employment. You are in government. Exert some pressure. Lobby. I mean, look at what is happening in Kumasi. Because their ministers are serious and they are lobbying. Look at the road network going on in Kumasi. Huge projects. And I think the airport in Kumasi has been renovated 2-3 times.
They have phase 3 now.
Phase 3?
Yeah.
And Sunyani is on what phase?
No.
Domestic. It's GB.
It's phase 0.
No, Kafu is serious. It's not like, you know, I went to the Boone region over the weekend. And assuming if there were flood, I could have come yesterday and reported earlier today. And look at the man-hour lost.
Right.
And it's like, you see, we are not laying the blame on this government.
All
Past
of them.
government.
Okay.
All of them. All of them.
So
And it's
recognize.
like they are just symbolic of occupying a space.
They think of themselves.
I mean, come on.
All right, we some advocacy here for Sunyani Resources Airport and other things. While we are thinking about recognizing our heroes from all over the country, not just men, but also women. I know there are stories of women who did a lot and whose contributions have not been written on brass, but I mean written in water, and you don't see it, you know. So let's recognize our heroes, especially when we are diving into Heritage Month. Being marked by GBC starting 1st of March. We have just preempted that celebration right here on GTV Breakfast from Mr. Odotechi and Dr. Anani Jinde to Ms. Taki, who he's going to tackle some messages for us, aren't you?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Yeah, so we've been talking Ukraine, we've been talking PPA, and we've been talking heroes. So,
and the messages are following suit. Ukraine gathering a lot more heat on the screen right now. Good morning. I personally returned from Ukraine a month ago and can give you more information about this whole war. The foreign ministry failed in the first place because for over a month and over, the embassy in Switzerland collated our details but refused to evacuate us at the time when most countries were doing the same for their students. I came down to Ghana about a month ago because I saw the war coming. And those are the thoughts of this one texting us there. Remember, comments sent to any of our platforms like this screen do not represent the views of GBC. They are exclusively the opinions of those who sent them to us. So that's T.E. Mensah who sent us that information. Perhaps if we need more details to verify his claims, we could get in touch. Paul says, great show. Kafui, this Ukrainian crisis, I'm sure, will let the leaders who don't know to now come to the reality that America always have a permanent interest but not permanent friends. Now, Kafui, please go back and check history. What brought about the blockade on Cuba by the U.S. and also the invasion of Grenada? Thank you. Paul is saying this from Kasua. More on Ukraine. Ukraine at this point needs physical intervention to bring the premeditated attack under control and not sanctions. Sanctions will be required when the pressing need of attack is brought under control. This is Amankwa of Reso. So an international story really gathering and commanding the attentions of Ghanaians. Good morning, Kaf Thelma and Dr. Anani. It appears the two regimes, when in power, fall in love with restrictive tendering and soul sourcing. So this is in relation to the PPA bosses, the former PPA bosses case. More questions coming in.
They fall in love, eh?
Okay, 2021 is saying this crisis must come to an end after some African leaders. Well, you reserve the right to your comments.
I like that comment, though. Some African leaders hug them on helicopters, and take them around the nation.
This matter. Okay, this is quite lengthy and it's about COVID-19, still very real, so be on guard still. Hello, good morning, please. Someone advised President to stop putting Ghana at risk for money because Ghana doesn't have a missiles defense shield or any capability to stop a ballistic missile incoming when Putin is targeting the voting UN Security Council countries.
It doesn't work like that.
God is the one who is saying
it doesn't
this.
Work like that. We have a Russian embassy here in Ghana, and we are
I see T.E. Mensah attempting to send us some more details there. Good morning, guys, and God bless you for your work. Thank you as well. A report of an accident. I don't want to show because I don't know what is behind the screen, so I'm just going to keep that here. But we'll alert the police and some officials to see what they say. So an accident, fatal accident, he's saying, at Achima Boabo between Achima Safo and Nsutem on the Accra-Kumasi Highway N6 involving a Nissan pickup and loaded DAF articulated truck leading to a complete closure of the road. We'll get this information across to the appropriate authorities. What more is T. Mensa saying? Greetings to my boss and mentor, BOT. Hey, so shout for you here. Ben, I'm glued to my seat and ready to learn from you. What's self-made Kareem saying? He just says good morning. So yes, much of the conversation has been focused on Ukraine, rightfully so, because of the safety concerns of the Ghanaian residents there and the students as well, and the plans to get them home. So when there is more to share, we will do same intra-city fares that have gone up, and people have received some of these things all weekend, telling us how much the church fares are now charging for various destinations. And this one looks like it's on the mid-year to Accra stretch, so very close to where I am. And they are just giving old fares and new fares now. Do you see the driver's mates consulting their notes in the church notes? I got so many messages over the weekend on that. We are not honoring our heroes today because the very things that they fought against are the very things that we do today. Let's use this celebration to speak against corruption. Haruna, I think, Dumakuru is saying this from Sunyani. Thank you, Haruna. AK, hello to you too. Thank you for sending your message across to us. Remember to add your destination as well so we know the reach of our audience. I'll hand it over back to you, Kav, but I'll keep my eye on this table, and if anything more comes up, you would hear it.
If you could just, before you go, just go back to that accident information again, because this is public information.
Okay.
So the authorities can just go, just keep going up, you will see it. So we can talk about that particular accident that happened.
Yep.
It's a road closure. So just let them know where.
So this
happened.
is it.
Yes. Yes.
A fatal accident at Achim Abuabo between Achim Asafo and Insutem on the Accra-Kumasi Highway, involving a Nissan pickup and a loaded DAF articulated truck, leading to a complete closure of the road. So we've just cleared that these are not, it doesn't show any people in any danger. So we are just seeing the vehicles involved, and this is what we are being told is causing the closure of the road. Credit to whoever sent us this. We do not own rights to these visuals, and we must issue that accordingly. Can I just toot my own horn and say Xavi has transformed Barcelona in months, and they are scoring 4 goals in each game. This is what we call a coach. Man, this story, whoever picked our sports stories did not add Barca's crucial game against Atletico Madrid, where we thrashed them a whopping 4 goals. Nobody thought that was worth mentioning. But when they score Barca, it will lead. Titi, kudos to you and all my Liverpool family. Big love.
Thelma, shaking the table. We'll see you. Thelma will be back later to talk about not Barca, but Kiev and Moscow, and a conversation on the Ukraine war. Thank you so much. Hashtag GTV Breakfast. WhatsApp number is 055-556-1034. Let's go to Parliament now, shall we, gentlemen? Because the Speaker is not too happy with I rule and then you overrule. I rule, then you overturn. He's not happy, and he was quite vociferous and very passionate last week. Will you shut up? Hey, Mr. Speaker. Huna in the people. So there are a couple of headlines I want to give you from the Speaker. Accept divergent views. Osei to the Speaker. That's in today's daily graphic. It's on page 18. And then in today's Ghanaian Times, we're talking about it's the custodian. My rulings are lawful. Joe Wise replies. He says his rulings are lawful. And, of course, he's been overturning certain rulings. I want to read that. So, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Joseph Osei has stated that all his rulings, whilst chairing proceedings of the House, are based on law and practice. We hear him affectionately being called Joe Wise. And he said this in response to claims that he overturned a ruling by the Speaker of Parliament who admitted a private member's motion by the minority that was seeking to probe government's COVID-19 expenditure. So there's a lot of argy-bargy going on in Parliament. I don't know whether corporate governance principles can be applied to Parliament, Dr. Anani Jinde. But yeah, there seems to be a tug-of-war between Speaker and his deputy. What's going on there?
Well, I think, you see, remember the very first day, I made a statement here that the posturing of the Speaker is too abrasive for my liking. See, looking at how tight Parliament is, what we expect from Parliament, and the message Ghanaians sent on 7th December is that we are tired of this acrimonious partisan politicking. So we want you to work together as a group. And you see, from the posture of the speaker, I think I said it once here, and others can disagree or agree with me, but that still remains my position. So that if a speaker of parliament goes for a function and he makes a declaration, I know that is why you are going to lose the elections. Makan. You heard that comment? Yeah. And I'm surprised the MPP communicators did not capitalize on that. This big news, this big communication material, this big propaganda material. But the MPP communicators, they refuse to take advantage. When I heard that statement, I said, hey. Really? Is that the speaker speaking?
The speaker spoke.
And I was very disappointed. I thought it was somebody who was on a political platform doing campaign. So if you do that, what impression do you create? You antagonize the other section. Do you think you can get the cooperation and the support that you need from them? Because you've taken a position and they've seen it. So I think I go back to what I said here about 2 months ago, that the speaker's position for me is too abrasive and antagonistic. That's why we are having all these things. And if it had been somebody who just came to the house from nowhere, perhaps I will understand and appreciate that, well, he doesn't know the rules of the house. But he's been there. I think he's the longest serving MP we've had. And he's been a leader of parliament. So he knows all the rules and then the intricacies involved in parliamentary procedure. So I think, back to your question, what Joe Wise did, was it lawful or unlawful?
He says it was lawful.
So they are both lawyers. So if Joe Wise is acting within the law, then what is the issue? But if he's acting outside the law, then there's a problem. But at this stage, I don't think we can continue along that path. But I also agree with the speaker on the issue of discipline in parliament.
Were you shocked when he said, will you shut up?
Well, I think that language to me is unparliamentary.
You can't talk like that in parliament.
No, it's unparliamentary. There's a way he could have put it, but I'm not going to coach him on how to speak. He's been a member of parliament. I've never been a member of parliament before. And I think that language to me was not appropriate. And to me is purely unparliamentary.
Can a speaker be sanctioned?
Well, they have their rules.
Can a speaker be sanctioned? I'm just curious.
He can. If you act outside what the constitution allows.
By who? Who will sanction him in parliament? He's the boss.
No. The sanction cannot only come from parliament. Because it is the constitution that is supreme. So that if the speaker does something that is outside or that is in breach of the law, anybody can take him on.
Are you expecting him to apologize for the unparliamentary language?
Well, I don't think he will apologize. This is not the first time he's said that. And I don't think it's becoming part of his style of leadership, which I think to some of us we feel very uncomfortable with. Because as a speaker, you are supposed to be bringing the two sides of the house together. But if you make it look as if you've taken a certain position, then we have a challenge here. Because whether we like it or not, the two parties must work together in the interest of the country. But there's too much partisanship in our parliament. So I ask myself, where is the national interest? Where is the national interest? So I think the speaker should also reconsider his posturing on some of these issues. And then the parliamentarians must also try to cooperate with him. Because without the cooperation, the speaker alone cannot bring the discipline. Because these are adults. These are adults. And we expect them to behave properly. So I think the speaker should crack the whip. But the way he cracked the whip should be within certain acceptable conduct.
Crack the whip gently. Anna?
Yes. That's my position.
Dr. Anani Jinde, speaking on how the speaker has spoken previously, accept divergent views. That's what Soiwusu, his deputy, is saying to the Speaker, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Soiwusu, calling on the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, to have the courage to accept divergent views. He said holding a different view on issues from the Speaker should not be new to him and not be considered as a conduct tantamount to insubordination. In his view, the Speaker's consideration of some of his rulings as offensive, illegal, or unconstitutional was a dangerous approach to democracy.
Kafu, just let me add one thing.
Yes.
The moment the deputy speaker sit on the speaker's chair, he had the same power and authority like the speaker.
But why does he keep overturning the rulings? That's the whole thing. I mean, why is he doing that?
The moment you occupy that position,
Then
you have the same powers and authority like the speaker.
Why does he bring some new rulings? Why is he overturning old ones?
Well, I think he will be the best person to answer these questions.
Actually, that will be my first question to ask when he sits here. I say, Chief, why are you overturning old rulings? Bring some new ones of your own.
Yeah, that is it.
Bernard.
I think, Kafui, when it comes to matters of the Speaker and his conduct, his rulings as against what his two deputies keep doing, I have had a divergent view and I've always disagreed with Dr. Jende on that score, and I think that it is good for democracy. We must not all agree when there is a national policy.
Yes.
Because while some people might think left, others will think right.
Truly.
In my candid view, I think this whole brouhaha has a historical antecedent. The MPP is suffering from what you call some kind of a historical absolute majority, where from 2017 to 2020, the MPP thought its reality, so it's a fact that they had an absolute majority, 169 as against 106. Now the narrative turned from 2020 to 2022 as we speak today, with Ghanaians giving Ghana Chimpe Parliament, what you call the hang parliament. So in a way, the MPP governments and its apparatus and its instruments still think that they have absolute majority. And in fact, I watched a video of the president of Ghana in Kumasi when he said that they had the majority caucus, which I agree. In Parliament, go with caucusism, whereby you can have the minority caucus, majority caucus. But this particular majority caucus is the most slimmest ever you can find in the history of the world. I have never come across any democracy whereby you have the party in government have the same number of MPs as the opposition party in waiting. So this kind of mental battle is going on with the MPP. Now the NDC as a party also feels strongly that we have come from 106 to 137 and we are at par with you. Don't forget that Babin can never be neutral. I mean, he comes from a certain political tradition called the PNDC to AFRC, PNDC to NDC, and luckily for them, a party in opposition is likely to have a Speaker of Parliament for the first time under the Fourth Republic. So you see, expect antagonism from the MPP to Babin on any material moment. Don't forget.
They still see him as an NDC guy.
Yes, and he is. And he can't deviate from that. Whether he like it or yes, he is an NDC member. And I'm sure if the NDC is able to win 2024, there might be an attempt to still maintain him as the Speaker of Parliament. What he would do after that would tell Ghanaian whether he was real or he was not. But very important point. Honorable Chairman, some of the majority caucus leader now indicated after he had won the election that his election was by consensus. That statement, I can tell you, didn't go down well with Babin. So you see, we went to an election, vote was put out there, I win. And at the end of the day, Carlos Ahenkra even became the fastest runner MP in the world when he wanted to run away with ballot paper. I mean, he was given a kind of a hefty blow in Parliament. So some history doesn't make Babin comfortable. I must be honest with you, because he feel that he was legitimately elected, but the party in government feel that his election was by consensus. So that doesn't make Babin comfortable at all. Now let me situate it in the current happenings when he said he gave a certain shout on somebody, and Dr. Jende said that yes, he went to I think Kofobi or Takrade, and he said that he knows the MPP government want them to pass the e-levy. But if the e-levy is passed as a bill, they are going to lose the next election in 2024. For me, that statement was quite not needed at that time. In as much as I belong to that tradition, when you assume certain position, your utterances ought to be guided very well. Because you see, in as much as you're a middleman Speaker of Parliament, you come from certain tradition. And anything you do, people look at it with a myopic eye. Oh, what is this guy says? Is he much concerned about the NDC coming to power? Obviously, all opinion polls, online, offline, show that majority of Ghanaians don't like e-levy. So we don't even need a neutral or an independent body like the Speaker of Parliament to emphasize that if I help you pass e-levy, you are going to lose the next election. For me, that statement was not quite timely at that time. But if you put all aside, the MPP as a government also realized that it doesn't have the absolute majority they used to have from 2017 till now. Last of it all, you ask a question that the next anytime Honorable Joe Sewusu comes here, your question to him, why do you keep overturning your boss ruling as against ruling on your own? Yeah. And that is a cause for worry. You see, Kafui, I've been a presiding member before, akin to Speaker of Parliament. If you're a presiding member and you give a ruling on an issue, and another assembly member who is not a PM comes to chair, he is called member presiding, not presiding member. I see. In that situation, he will need a two-thirds majority to overturn your decision at the assembly level. So if a presiding member, let's say AM, PM, give a ruling on a matter, maybe for sickness or other reason, he couldn't attend the next sitting, and the assembly decided to appoint somebody by consensus to act on that particular sitting day, and he wants to overturn the previous decision, we call that person member presiding. You will need a two-thirds majority to overturn that decision. So in the situation of Parliament,
did it ever happen when you were in assembly that a member presiding?
We had a member presiding one time.
And who overturned a previous
He never,
ruling?
because you need a two-thirds majority.
And it's harder to do.
And to take the two-thirds majority is not a joke. So that mostly doesn't happen at the assembly level. But at the national level, they have the standing order for Parliament. What are the standing orders say? Okay, you have the capacity to overturn a previous decision, but it doesn't create a good cohesion. Because if I'm Babin and you are Joe Wise, and you keep overturning my decision, I see you as the enemy of my progress. And obviously, that kind of ideological battle still reigns. One ideological battle hold on to social democracy, property owning democracy. So we should also, in as much as we are advising the mouse, we must equally advise the cats. If Speaker of Parliament, some of his statements could not be timely on certain instances, let us also turn the gun on Honorable Joe Wise that he should stop overturning decision of his boss. Whether we like it or not, the Speaker of Parliament is the boss of Parliament. And once certain decisions are made, why can't we wait for him to resume his seat and we put the same issue to vote? Probably, he might even have a change of mind. And for me, I don't think that in all the activities of Right Honorable Speaker, he has always acted in favor of the NDC. There are times he had also blocked the NDC in Parliament on certain instances. So yes, he cannot be neutral, but we expect a certain how that consensus is needed the more. So in this situation, what is the way forward? The way forward is that the MPP should realize that it doesn't have absolute majority again. The NDC equally too must also realize that for Ghana to progress, certain consensus must also be built. But we cannot build consensus on issues that majority of Ghanaians do not support. A good example is the e-levy. If you go out there, if you like, step at Kanda today and do an opinion poll, meet 100 people, about 91 will say they don't like the e-levy. So if the consensus building on the part of NDC and MPP is on a policy, on a bill, that is detrimental to majority of Ghanaians, I don't support consensus. But overall, Parliament must find a way to work together, because the Buga way will not help Ghana. In fact, if you go to BBC, CNN today, VOA today, that kind of fist cuff that happened in Parliament gave us a bad international reputation, bad international name. We don't want to see that going forward. Let them find a way and realize that one in the part that does not have absolute majority today. Don't forget, the narrative table can also turn tomorrow. The NDC can win 2024 election, and the MPP can also have majority in Parliament. In that situation, the bed we are laying today will also lie on it tomorrow.
Gentlemen, see, Kafui, I have a question.
Yes.
Now, it's clear that Bagbe is an NDC person. There's no doubt about it. It will be in his interest if NDC wins the next elections. So why don't you encourage the MPP to bring the e-levy so that they will lose and your party will come to power?
These are some serious chess games going on. If by passing the e-levy, NDC comes to power, and then you are sympathetic, why don't you just let it pass?
Let them pass so that they will lose.
Quick one. Kafui, just a second, quick. I also think otherwise. It's like your next door neighbor who is your enemy is going to die, and he comes knocking on your door to give him or her DDT. That is what it means. Your next door neighbor is going to die. You are at loggerheads with that person, and he comes knocking on your door that, okay, do you have any spare DDT there? If the MPP is going to die, let them die their own death.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to have both of them here and we'll chat to them. Bernard Odrotechi is regional coordinator for the Commonwealth Alliance for Young Entrepreneurs West Africa, and Dr. Kweku Ananijinde is a corporate governance expert. He's a lawyer too. He teaches at JIMPA and at UPS. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'll let you know what the wrap of the headlines are, but we'll get some messages quickly before we go. Dama, what do you have?
So 2022, I don't know how this guy got his 2022, the year. He's saying, Osei must first respect the speaker. During vote, he said he's not a speaker, but if the speaker travels, he presents himself as a speaker. Putin will get you soon. No, we do not support any violence or invasions comments on this platform. Is the Russian government preparing to launch a nuclear bomb towards Ukraine? Perhaps you can ask Russia. But thanks for sending your voice through. I just saw a message and I thought it's a first message. She said, good morning, GTV Breakfast. Kudos to Shraj on the PPA boss issue. I get excited when I hear these things happening because I get the feel of Ghana systems are working. But then again, I ask, is it just a 9-day wonder? And she goes on to say, it's consoling to know Ghanaians in Ukraine are being evacuated safely back to their motherland. It's our prayer that the 3 cities where immediate evacuation can be done, a safe and sound haven should be made available to them with continuous communication with them. And more on the speaker. The speaker has been on and off sittings. Now that he has been straight on his seat, he's asking his children to shut up with a hand on the mouth and a zip on the lips sign. This is Kofi Debra from Ablekuma. Look at how U.S. has gotten closer to Russia. Has Russia gotten that close to the USA? One has kept with the agreement, the other has consistently violated the agreement and used powerful media to make Russia look like evil and not trustworthy. So the debate on who is infringing on whose territory with the Russia and Ukrainian conflict is what is at play here with this last message from Kofi Debra from Ablekuma. We'll be interrogating some of these issues a bit further in our next segment, and we'll seek to understand some of these issues a bit more. So you would want to stay for that conversation, which will happen after this segment. For now, back to you, Ka.
Thank you very much, Thelma. And in the midst of all the international news and everything going on in Parliament, let us remember that today is 28th February 2022, 74 years after the riots of 1948. And I'm just reading, and this is my last comment on this, the text of a short telegram addressed to the Secretary of State for the Colonies on the 29th of February, 1948, the day after the disturbances that took away the lives of the 3 people we are celebrating today. So it's addressed to the Secretary of State, Colonies, London. After permitting peaceful demonstrations of unarmed ex-servicemen, police, without provocation, fired on them. Several killed, many wounded. Police and political officers unable to protect life and property. Civil authorities unable to control situation appeal to certain civilians who are officers in the United Gold Coast Convention to restore order. Main shops in commercial areas looted. UAC Central Store burned down. People demand self-government immediately. Recall governor. Send commission. Supervise formation Constituent Assembly urgent. Kwame Nkrumah, General Secretary, United Gold Coast Convention, Salt Pond, Gold Coast, addressed to the Secretary General of the United Nations and a whole host of people, House of Commons, and it's just a wonderful appendix in a book I'm reading right now, 1948 Riots, Andrew Ofwe Amegachi. Get a copy of this book.
How do I get a copy?
I would talk to me. Yeah. So this is it. Marking the day. There's even an interview of an interrogation between the president's wife and president's mother. Examination of Mrs. Akufo-Addo by Mr. Dinglefoot, Appendix 6. Yeah, and members of the Kusi Commission, they're all here. It's a fantastic book by Mr. Andrew Amegache, 1948 Riots, marking today, the 28th of February, 2022, 74 years after those disturbances took away our people. We continue to remember them and keep staying here on GTV Breakfast. We've got big conversations on Ukraine and Russia coming up next. And then Bethel Revival Choir will take us home in the last hour. You stay. Don't go anywhere.
Live from GBC Studio 1, this is The Breakfast Show.
goodness level.
Excessive drinking can be detrimental to health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
And there's
Good morning, my neighbor.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling healthy.
A la carte.
Yeah, all the time. Okay, let's take a peek.
I brought my spine.
There are certain things that we do to help the children with their brushing.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
You want it served buffet style?
On-site restaurant.
Complimentary breakfast?
Off of your plate should be vegetables.
So in my lifetime, I haven't seen Ghana Black Stars win an African Cup.
Can I show what is written on the back?
Yes, definitely.
Where's the camera?
Just stand and turn.
So what's your pleasure than Votras, yeah? At that time of the morning. So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
We've got you covered with a trusted team.
Good morning. It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling healthy.
A la carte.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
So what's your pleasure than Votras, yeah? At that time of the morning.
You want it served buffet style? Complimentary breakfast?
On-site restaurant.
Or room service?
We've got you covered.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
With a trusted team.
So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
My neighbor.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks for staying on. It's still Breakfast Live on GTV. And in this global community where we find ourselves, happenings in faraway Ukraine and in Russia and in Belarus and on the European continent in general is rippling across the world, and Ghana is also feeling the effects of the ripple, and the political superpowers are at play, and a lot of power play is going on in this international relations issue concerning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There are those who think that the conflict is an age-long one and it's just now playing out because of the history between the two countries. People have also suggested that Russia may also be pursuing an active agenda which it has sustained for many years. Of course, countries like the US and other Western powers calling for an immediatization of hostilities in that part of the European Union. And so we are going to try to understand some of these issues a bit more. And at the table this morning to help us with this analysis, Mr. Adib Sani, International Relations and Security Analyst. Thank you, Adib, for joining us.
My pleasure always.
We are also joined by Joseph Youngson, who is a Ghanaian student in Ukraine. He's been sharing parts of his journey with us as soon as this invasion started, and we've been keeping up with him to try and sort out what kind of state they are in since this broke out on Thursday. He's joining us now on Zoom. So Adib, we'll just engage Joseph very shortly just to get an idea of what the current situation is. Good morning, Joseph, and thanks for being with us once again.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. I just want to find out, when we spoke to you on Friday, I think the last time before we signed off on the program, there had been an attack very close by to where you were, and a lot more people had come to take shelter in the bunker with you. What was the situation over the weekend, and how are you keeping up at this time?
It never gets better. Over the weekend, I mean, the weekend has been very horrifying. From Friday, I spoke to you, Saturday, Sunday, it's not been easy. It keeps getting worse, and it's not an exaggeration by me. But then Friday, when you spoke to me, I was in the bunker of my university. I mean, the hostel I live in, that's where I resided for the past days. But then right now, I've moved to a new bunker where my Ghanaian friend called me to come. I had to go through a thick forest to get to this new bunker that I am. And then I actually feel safe here because in this bunker, they provide us with a lot of, I mean, they've given us room to feel at home. They've given us blankets, they've given us, sometimes they serve us with hot coffees and all. So I'm really grateful to my friend who called me to come and join me in this bunker.
Joseph, we are looking at some of the pictures you sent us earlier. You actually feel better here?
This is far better than where I was previously. Where I was previously in my school, the ground wasn't tarred. It was filled with dust, but I feel a lot better here, even though it's very, very cold. It's very cold, but I feel a lot better. But yesterday, the people realized because of the cold, they had to bring in heaters, electric heaters, to make us feel a little bit warm. So I think yesterday night was quite better. The bombings haven't stopped in any way. It hasn't. And if you look at, I think I sent a picture of the geographical area of my city, Sumy. Sumy is 15 miles away from the Russian border. So you would see a lot of Russian troops passing in through the city. The fighting never stopped. The Ukrainian troops in Sumy are still fighting them very hard. The blastings are going on in even residential areas. There are a lot of horrifying videos I have not sent, but they are so horrifying. And then these engagements happen in residential apartments. What happens here is that we've studied the pattern of the war so far, and then this is the day 5, if I'm not mistaken, or day 6. We've realized that I think the mayor has spoken to the Ukrainian citizens here that from 4 p.m. or at latest by 3:30 p.m. up till in the morning by 10 a.m., everybody must be in the bunker. But after that period, you have about 2-3 hours to go to your home, pack some foodstuffs again, if you need to freshen up, if you need to brush your teeth, because we don't have these facilities in the bunkers. We just have a urinary facility, but we don't have bathrooms, we don't have where you can brush your teeth. So people who live by will just troop into their homes, pack some food. If they have to prepare some food, they prepare some food and they come back. Currently, I'm here with my brother in his apartment. We are just, after this interview, we have to rush to the grocery store to go and get some food, and then prepare to go into the bunker at night again. And what I must say is that our family can only do enough. But yesterday, the government did a press. I don't know, but it was a press.
There was a press briefing by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs yesterday in Accra, and she mentioned your city, Sumy, as one of 3 where evacuations cannot happen. She mentioned Kharkiv, she mentioned Sumy, she mentioned Dnipropetrovsk, and she's saying for those areas, because of their close proximity to the Russian side, it would be virtually impossible to send immediate help.
Yeah, I side with her on that. It's almost impossible. Transportation systems has been cut off. No buses are working. train systems are not working. So it's almost impossible for any evacuation now. The only thing we can appeal for right now is our families have done their best. They've tried to send us some cash to sustain for now. But we are running out. Day by day, we keep spending. Prices are going high and all that, but it might get to a point that, it might just get to a point that we might start running out of cash.
Even the monies, the last time we spoke to you, you hinted that the cash point had run out. The machines were no longer dispensing money because the Ukrainians themselves were withdrawing large quantities of money to help them also keep their heads above water. Is it different from where you've now moved to, and do you have access to now withdraw these monies to buy the things that you need?
Yeah, so the advantage of where I moved to also is there has been this ATM machine. A lot of people didn't know it existed. It's inside the university. It's a different university, but it's quite far from town. So there's this ATM machine people are not aware of. Fortunately for us, we tried it and there was money in it. So that's the only source of getting cash right now. And people will get to discover it and then they'll start moving into that place. And then you realize that it will get empty again. Banking systems are not working for them to come and restock the ATM machine. So if it runs out, then we have to look for alternatives again.
I just wonder, if it's so hard to get you out, how then does money come to you? Because now the machines may run out, as you're saying, and no one can physically bring monies to you, I would assume. So how do you expect help to arrive, and in what form?
Right now, it can only be done electronically. If these monies are sent into our Visa cards, or that's how my family has been supporting me for now. They send money into the Visa cards, and then we are able to, if we get these ATM machines, we are able to withdraw the cash. If we are lucky to find ATM machines, we withdraw cash.
My concern for you, Joseph, is how you are going to keep feeding and how you're going to keep, buying the things that you need if the supplies are running low in the city where you are. What's the plan for that?
Right now, we are fortunate that the stores are still working now. I think they've realized that the citizenry have to go out and then get food. So stores are still working. But I can also tell you that even though they are working, they are running out of stock. They are running out of stock. And then we are just, we feel like we are in a stuck situation. We can't go in, we can't come out. It's unsafe to go out.
It's pretty much a situation of being between a rock and a hard place right now, because you can't run away and you can't also remain where you are for too long. Do you think that people may resort to hoarding some of the essential food items and water, for example, as they remain uncertain over the future of the days ahead?
Okay. So I'd like to, my brother knows the terrain very well of this city. He's been here for a very long time. I'd like him to come here and then explain to you about how the cities, stuff are going on here.
That would be great.
Yeah, hello.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. Tell us your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Samuel.
Samuel, thank you for offering shelter to those in need and for everything that you're doing to keep Joseph and your colleagues safe in your own small way.
Sure, thank you. We are actually doing our best. And what I actually wanted to add is with the cash currently, all the machines are not working. But those who have managed to move out of the severe areas are now selling their money. They are selling their money. So we are actually
explain a bit further what that means. What do you mean by people are selling their money?
Yes. So those who had a lot of cash with them, as in with the currency here is called hryvnia, as to that of Ghana cedis. It's called hryvnia. So those who have left to a safer place, some have huge sums of money that they don't need to use. So they are selling it to those still inside, if you understand me. So maybe someone at a border in Hungary is selling his cash. He can send it to us cash. So the only way we can receive money right now is through mobile money, mobile money given to us, their numbers home. So we send to them, then they send us the cash. As he made mention, the stores are actually running out of stocks right now. So it would be very good if we could get some cash, go into the stores, get as much as we can, stock ourselves just in case. Nobody knows. Maybe in the next 2 days, the stores might not be open and we will be left stranded. So that is what I have to add right now. Currently, nobody's going and nobody's coming. And we are still hoping that we get ways that all the students in Sumy can leave.
I'm quite disturbed just listening to you, because you have monies that you can actually use. At least for now, you have a little money that you can use, but it may run out very quickly and prices are skyrocketing. I just wonder if anyone has been in touch with you from the government side, from the leadership of your unions of students.
Honestly, yes, it has happened. They are actually doing well. I would say that, because they are through our leaders. They have been sending messages, trying as much as possible to get our safety, trying as much as possible to even get vehicles and other things inside. But from their point of view, they have even realized it's very difficult, because, as I said, we have 2 openings in the city. We have that leading to the main capital, Kyiv, and that leading to Kharkov. These are the main targets of the Russian soldiers. So if there are any buses to convey us, definitely we are going to meet them. And they are actually doing well. They have given us their works. They are working on it currently. But on grounds right now, we know that we can't move in and we can't move out. So what we have to do is we have to build our storage, put in more food, not just us here. I'm talking of all the students in Sumy. Try as much as possible to get a lot of food here for each and everyone who will run out of food. That is what we are trying to do now.
But of course, that will only be possible if you have the monies to buy these essential items that you need, because you have no idea when another stock may arrive if the shops run out of what they have in stock right now. That's what you're saying in essence.
Yeah, so far we have an official figure of about 96 Ghanaians who have brought up their names, who are currently living in Sumy. Yeah, and there are a lot of other nationals who are also facing same problems. They are unable to move anywhere. We all feel stuck. It's not just Ghanaians, Nigerians, Indians, Turkish, Chinese people, Cameroon, Senegal. Like there are a whole lot of people in this situation. And ever since I left my hostel, I feel like other people think it's unsafe there. So they've also tried to find friends who live far from that military basement I spoke to you about the other time. So the hostel is getting deserted by the day. Even yesterday, I had to take a very huge risk to go back to my hostel with my brother here. We passed through the bush into the hostel when we had that about 2 hours for ourselves. We went back there. I packed all my stuff into a bag just in case I never returned. So it's all going to be in one, because when I was leaving my room was like, I didn't pack anything. So I've now been able to pack everything into a bag where I know that it's all safe in there. All my laptops and everything are all safe in a bag, but I have just a little bag containing my documents. If there's any opportunity to leave, we'll have to grab it.
Joseph and Samuel, I've watched some of the reports on international media platforms, and we've seen people open up their homes to receive some of the thousands and thousands of people who are fleeing this conflict zone. I wonder if you're getting any kind of support from the locals themselves, or if you're experiencing any challenges with how they are treating you.
Okay, like I said, even the locals are all receiving shelter in the bunker. Apart from them being in their homes, they all come to the bunker at night, yeah, to seek shelter there. And for my place, I mean, we are just 3 black people there. And then they serve us hot coffee most of the time. They try to make sure we are very comfortable. They've been very nice. The people in my city have not been racist in any way. They've been very, very nice to us, and we can just only say thank you to them. They've been very nice to us, actually.
I wonder if there's anything more you'd like to share before we take leave of you. Of course, we would want you to keep safe at all times and to keep together, so that if help should arrive, like you said, at the drop of a hat, you'd be in a position to leave.
It's unfortunate I have to do this, but we are I mean, it's going to happen. We are going to run out of cash very soon. Our parents are doing enough, but they won't be able to do everything for us. Even right now, we are hearing just a bus. Even if you are going to get a bus, it will cost you about $500 from one city to another. Can you imagine? This is how bad it is getting for foreign students. People are willing to pay such money. And our parents might be able to help, but it wouldn't go a long way. It's just cash that we appeal for right now. It's sad that we have to say this thing to the public, but right now we might run out of cash and we don't have any option.
We understand that some of your parents and guardians would be meeting with government officials at a scheduled meeting tomorrow to sort of get over or to run through how they can send you help and what you should do. What message would you want your parents to pass on to the government officials to enable you get a better grasp of the situation?
Okay, this meeting, I've seen the release on it. I wish they organized a Zoom conference rather, because some of our parents, my parents live in Tamale far away. They wouldn't be able to come to Accra. The release just came yesterday. So if it were to be organized in Zoom, our parents who are far away from Accra could have joined and then also share their opinions. But then I think our parents should just make the government know that we are stuck in Ukraine, that we are unable to move, they should try send us something. They should mobilize something and send to us.
You've said this a number of times, both of you, about mobilizing something and sending to you. We've all seen how volatile the situation is. You have admitted that your city, Sumi, is pretty much, you know, caught in a rock and a hard place. So how does this help come to you then? If people want to genuinely support you and want to also, you know, send you a little something to tide you over, how do they do that? Are you organizing yourselves so that people can receive these things on your behalf? What exactly is that plan there?
Yeah, so if anyone will want to support, I think the NUC's executives are there. They have their numbers where we can put out that they'll be able to support you. That we'll give the contact to your producers. If anybody wishes to support, they can pass it through the NUC's executives, and then every Ghanaian will have their share of it and use it to sustain themselves for now.
Right. Thank you so much, Joseph and Samuel, for sharing a part of your morning with us. We know that you're very tight on time. So
I want to add something, please.
Okay.
The bells should be round to Ghanaians that Ukraine is a very big city. We have friends giving us pressure to move, as if it's just a small place that you can just get up and start moving to them. People are giving us pressure. Oh, your colleagues are in Poland. What I still making us feel like we want to be here. We don't want to be here. Nobody wants to be in the war zone. We keep hearing loud blast every day. They should not give us that pressure of trying to move out. It's unsafe right now. And even if it's not safe, there's no means of transport right now. We are not all in the same situation. They shouldn't be giving us that pressure to move. Some of us want to move, but we don't have the opportunity.
Yeah, and to add to that too, our parents back home, anytime you call a student, I would advise that you should rather encourage them, but not to cause more fear, because honestly, right now, the mental state of each student is not good. So if you call that, I've heard this, we know, we are here, we are receiving it. So all what we need from you right now is God be with you, you are strong. We need encouraging words rather than things you've heard. We need support, both mentally, both spiritually. In fact, any kind of support you can give to us. But my concern is, please, let's try as much as possible to help the mental health of every student here.
Thank you, Samuel and Joseph, for sharing your day, a part of it with us. We know that you have to rush off, so during the 2-hour break that you have, to grab whatever you can from the shops. We will continue to liaise with your student leadership to consider other ways of sending you help and keeping in touch with you as well throughout this crisis. Our thoughts and prayers remain with you always.
Thank you. Thank you.
Samuel and Joseph have been speaking to us from the Ukrainian city of Sumy, where we are told is one of the 3 cities that are most at risk of a lockdown in Dnipropetrovsk and so much difficulty accessing Kharkov and Sumy at the moment. So Ghanaians resident in those 3 cities will face further restrictions on their movement, and government is still working on the clock to send them help. At the table, Mr. Sani Adib international relations analyst and also a security analyst, is going to help us understand a few of these issues well. So we are very concerned about the safety of our people in Ukraine. We are concerned about everybody's life in Ukraine because we don't want any more people to die. The UN is telling us that hundreds have died already. The one submission from Dr. Nani Jinde when we're doing the newspaper headlines is that the Russian conflict is historical in the fact that it is a power play that is seeking perhaps to bring Russia back onto the table as a superpower house. And a lot of people are still struggling to understand exactly the dynamics of that relationship. And so offer us some insights into how we came to be in this situation.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I mean, I've had the opportunity to peruse social media, and I see people say a lot of things about the conflict, but you'd realize that a lot of them don't really have a full grasp of the situation. I gave your producers a picture to display. I don't know if it is ready, so I can give some better perspective into.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right. So I think. So when NATO started, it was a Western European American thing. However, since Putin became the leader of Russia, we've seen 4 waves of NATO expansionism from Western Europe into Eastern Europe. So it was very much based in the West, the UK, France, Italy, Spain, etc. But in recent years, we've seen it expand towards the east. Now we have countries such as Latvia, Estonia, and the rest becoming NATO members. And when you take a closer look at the map, the biggest buffer between Russia on one hand and NATO on the other hand,
I really wish
Belarus.
you could move to the screen and perhaps try and point out a few of the areas, but we will try and work around the possibility of having that happen. We are speaking to Mr. Adib Sani, and the map on your screen is what he's going to attempt to try and explain to us when it comes to the expansions that he's mentioned in relation to NATO's encroachment into what Russia says is NATO's encroachment into further and further into its territories. And so Adib Sani will be trying to point out these areas to us in a bit more detail. We are trying to understand the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has left hundreds of people dead to bombardment. Our foreign minister has told us yesterday that normal life is very different in Ukraine right now, and she made the point that Ghana has supported efforts to stop Russia from using force in this situation, and Russia's security concern is predominantly in relation to the NATO group's expansion. And I've read reports of some doctors, even here in Ghana, making the case that Russia has a legitimate concern to be very worried about persons in virtually their backyard spaces trying to get closer and closer to their installations. But the question remains, is this the right approach to protect Russia's security? And Adib Sani is going to help us understand the movements of NATO in a bit more detail. And he's just gone to the screen now. So Adib, you are telling us about some movements. So walk us through what you were saying before.
Absolutely. After the Second World War, the US and some Western European countries came together to put together what we call today NATO. Then the USSR then, with their Eastern European allies, also came together to form what we call the Warsaw Pact. Unfortunately for them, the Warsaw Pact didn't see the light of day, but NATO existed to date. Like I indicated, since Vladimir Putin became the Russian leader, we've seen 4 waves of NATO expansionism, which was hitherto a Western European thing: United Kingdom, France, Spain, Belgium, Germany, and the rest. However, in recent years, we have seen NATO expand eastwards into Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, and the rest, which are former territories within the USSR, which later seceded. But of grave concern also to Russia is the fact that Latvia, which is there, and Estonia are NATO member countries, okay? And considering the close proximity to Russia, it is really a matter of grave concern to them. However, the biggest challenge Russia has with NATO is Ukraine's determination to be part of NATO. And Ukraine, when you take a closer look at the map, is the buffer between NATO and Russia and Belarus. But Belarus has a government that is friendly towards the Russians, so they have no issues with that. So what in essence this means is if Ukraine joins NATO, all of Western European countries, including America, can move their military arsenal into Ukraine and later can stage attacks against Russia. So it is something that the Russians don't want, because currently that buffer which exists now would perhaps be broken. That is why the Russians have decided that, hey, let's go on a special operation. And there's a region that is based somewhere around here. It is called the Donbas region, and it contains a lot of Russian-speaking Ukrainians. And the Donbas region is made up of Luhansk and Donetsk. So it was under the pretext of protecting Russian speakers in Ukraine that Vladimir Putin decided that I would go on an all-out assault. And this is also based on a historical antecedent. In 1961, the Americans, using American-based Cuban dissidents, decided to stage an invasion of Fidel Castro's Cuba, which was a total catastrophe, and we call it the Bay of Pig invasion. And in 1962, in response to America's movement of missiles from the U.S. to Turkey and Italy, the USSR also decided to move its missiles to Cuba, which is very close to America. And in geopolitics, security-wise, you would wish to keep your enemies or perceived enemies at bay. And so that is what also led to what we call the Cuban Missile crisis. And in 1963, the Russians, then known as the USSR, also tested the most powerful nuclear bomb ever. And we call it the Tsar bomber. And it is actually a hydrogen bomb that is thousands of times bigger in terms of lethality, in terms of size, than Hiroshima and Nagasaki put together. And it would also interest you to know that, because I've heard a number of Ghanaians, on social media, talk about the fact that NATO should intervene. NATO cannot intervene because, one, Ukraine, as you can see, is not a NATO member country. Secondly, you cannot have nuclear-powered countries directly engaged in belligerence, okay? Because Russia, let's not forget, contains half of the world's 14,000 nuclear arsenal. So, it would be a dangerous thing for America or the UK or any NATO member country to directly confront Russia. And the second issue is got to do with Vladimir Putin wanting to reassert Russian dominance in not just Eastern Europe, but at the global stage. Because when you listen carefully to international media outlets, there's a lot of talk about Russia's dwindling force, okay? So this is also a unique opportunity for President Vladimir Putin to announce to the world that, hey, we are still a force to reckon with. And it is not surprising that we've even seen him expand his dominance beyond Eastern Europe, even into Africa. Like we have the Wagner Group, which is a Russian mercenary force operating in Mali. So that is the map for you. I think that currently, as it stands, I see two things likely to happen. One, we might have Russia taking over Ukraine, then withdrawing. By so doing, they've served information to the fact that we are still a force to reckon with. Or we have the Russians completely take over Ukraine. remove the government in place and impose on the Ukrainian people a government which would be a rubber stamp, so to speak, a Russian puppet government in place, and continue the existence of that buffer between Russia and NATO.
Okay, so I'm just trying to assimilate all these things now. So obviously Russia, the country in red here, and Belarus is siding with Russia. Absolutely. Because the assault was mounted through Belarusian
was
borders.
Used as a staging post.
And so we can safely assume that Belarus is siding with Russia on this. Ukraine wants to go blue like these other countries and join NATO. So I'm trying to simplify all these things in my mind. Russia's argument is that this blue wall is mounting up and it's unacceptable to their future of being a powerhouse. And the threat is that if any country intervenes, as we've heard President Putin say, they will feel the weight of Russia's nuclear power. What does that nuclear power mean to Russia now? And is it why they continue to enjoy such dominance on that side of the West European side of that continent?
Okay, so I couldn't have agreed with you more. Just yesterday, we heard in the news that Vladimir Putin has announced that his forces should be on nuclear alert. I think it's just a political statement. I mean, to send a clear message to the world that, hey, I'm still loaded with nuclear arsenal. On the other hand, like it started with this issue, a lot of us thought that there's absolutely no way Vladimir Putin would invade Ukraine.
He did say, and the Russian communication machinery shot down those arguments for weeks on hand, even as the hundreds of thousands of troops, I think the UN at the last count from the reports I heard is about 100,000 strong troops that launched from Belarus, denied until Thursday morning, just before the attack happened, that they were going to actually take Ukraine. They had already made inroads into Crimea and other parts of the country. They just wanted to hold this last brief for Russia so that the blues don't touch it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you mentioned, Russia has a nuclear deterrence. You see, nuclear bombs are not manufactured to be used, but it's an insurance package.
But if you're not going to use it, why are you manufacturing it?
It's an insurance package. They stay away from you when you have that nuclear deterrence. You think Trump, if North Korea didn't have a nuclear bomb, Trump wouldn't have attacked them at the height of, the tensions. But they realized, because before you go into war, a war situation, there's what we call risk assessment. Okay, you would need to take a closer look at the strengths and weaknesses and all that. It doesn't make sense going into an all-out confrontation with a nuclear-powered country. That is why the U.S. and Russia have presence in Syria. But guess what? Before the Americans bomb any target, they inform the Russians. Before the Russians do, they inform the Americans, because they respect each other's space, and it is not good for humanity for any nuclear country to go to war with any nuclear country. So we might have the elephants fighting and the grass, being Ukraine, suffering, unfortunately.
So let's now try and explain what this means for escaping and for moving our citizens out. Obviously, every Ghanaian citizen in Russia is also trying to escape to other countries because they feel that if there's any retaliation in Russia and they find themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time, they could be in danger. But more so for those who are in Ukraine, and we spoke to Joseph and Samuel, who are closer to Russia than they are to other surrounding countries. So they can't get to Poland from where they are. They can't get to Slovakia and Hungary. They can't get to Romania. A few have arrived in Moldova, we are told. But for those who remain closest to this side of the Russian map, it's hard to get away.
Okay. But I strongly doubt we would have a lot of Ghanaians at this site, because this is the Donbass region.
Okay.
This is the Sea of Azov, and this is the Aegean Sea. This is Crimea, okay,
which
where
Russia
there's controls, okay. So this is the Donbass region made up of Donetsk and Luhansk, okay. However,
mainly Russian speaking.
Mainly Russian speaking. However, at this time, it will be very dangerous for anyone to attempt to leave, okay. However, if you happen to find yourself in any part of Ukraine that is towards the west, okay, it would help, because that is why, considering the vast nature of the border between Ukraine and Poland, they are able to get in there. Countries such as Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, particularly Hungary, has a new government which is anti-immigrant. Okay, so hitherto they speak against a lot openly against immigrants coming into their country and taking over. But guess what? They've decided to open their doors to immigrants or refugees fleeing from Ukraine into their countries. So if you are lucky to find yourself anywhere around here, then you can move. However, you need to, of course, follow local protocols that might have been announced.
Will this be a make or break for Putin, do you think? Because he has adopted a very domineering command of the situation, and he's basically calling everyone's bluff. So is it make or break if this war does not go the way he wants? Do you even see it not going Russia's way?
You see, I see it going Russia's way, but I'm really surprised and about how the Ukrainians have been able to defend their countries. I thought it was just a matter of a few days, like 2-3 days, for Russians to completely take over the country. But there are two things involved. One, we have Ukraine receiving a lot of support from almost every Western European country, including the Germans, even going against their long, tradition of not supplying arms to conflict hotspots, changing the laws. And so Olaf Scholz, the new German chancellor, was even given a standing ovation when he entered the German parliament. Secondly, we see this as a battle for survival. So a lot of Ukrainians, like you and I, deciding to take to Molotov cocktails, going into the town center, getting their hands on guns to help defend their country. So I see a lot of resolve on the part of the Ukrainians. But on the other hand, I'm also wondering whether at this time Russia would withdraw, because it will be a big loss and a big blow to Russians. And it will, as a matter of fact, deflate their ego if they withdraw at this time, despite the ongoing negotiations somewhere around here. They were supposed to have it in Minsk, but they've decided...
And the Ukrainians refused to move so further into Belarusian territories, knowing the relationship. Belarus is like little Russia. Or so the link with main big Russia was just too much of a risk for the Ukrainian delegation to... They had actually initially refused to go for these talks, but they came back and said, we are willing to talk, but we can stand at the door and we can just, tell each other what we want and then part companies. So there's an attempt there to try and jaw as the military components all play around in the center of Ukraine, further from the Donbas region and all. I'm going to try and pick the thoughts of Mr. Kenahos, who is a senior research fellow at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, and he'll also be sharing his thoughts on this developments with us. Good morning, Mr. Ahosu. Good morning.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. And I just want to pick your thoughts on what the developments have been with Russia and Ukraine so far. Russia saying it's only protecting its own and it is not doing anything that they have not agreed with the U.S. years ago to do. And it is the U.S. side who have not kept their side of the bargain, trying to push NATO, more and more NATO countries into the space that they had initially agreed would be a safe zone for Russia. Do you find this as a sound argument from Vladimir Putin's side?
Well, to understand what is going on between Russia and Ukraine, you have to look into history, but unfortunately we will not have the time to do that. And what is clear is that the world has moved from a unipolar to a multipolar at the moment. And that is just after the Cold War, the U.S. was leading. But we see Russia as a resurgent power, and we see China as a resurgent power. And I think this is the dynamics that is playing out in Ukraine. While there may be differences between Ukraine and Russia, it is the exploitation of what these relations by the U.S. in particular, and the Western world at large that is going on. I have been listening to your conversation. Two things I want to talk about. Russia, from my analysis, Russia does not want to occupy Ukraine because the cost of occupying a country is too expensive in terms of resources and casualties that you suffer. There is difference between throwing large bombs to destroy armed depots and strategic buildings and actually to carry out door-to-door fighting, which is a guerrilla warfare against people in their own country. We have seen this play out in Iraq. And the casualties on the part of Russia would not be. What Russia is trying to do, from my analysis, is that it wants to make the war very expensive for Ukraine, degrade the Ukrainian economy, and in order to incite domestic uprising against the Zelensky government. But it appears that it's not working. So far, the Ukrainians have solidly stood behind Zelensky. But in other words, the economy of Ukraine has been a basket economy, and what is going on is making it worse. So this is what Russia actually wants is negotiation. Though they are talking between negotiation and between Ukraine and Russia, that is not the ultimate. The ultimate is to use the war as a smoke screen to draw the Western world together so that they can negotiate, particularly with the U.S., and know where their boundaries lie in terms of the expansion of this NATO. Because once Ukraine becomes a member of NATO, it means that Ukraine has all the right to store up all kinds of weapons, to nuclear weapons, which will undermine the security of Russia. Is the same reason that Russia was involved in Georgia, because Georgia was also mentioned during the 2008 Bucharest distance that there will be the next distance. So I don't think that Russia actually wants to occupy Ukraine. What it's doing in effect is that Europe itself is in a form of failure, whereby their policy or security arrangement for Europe is a failure. If today the Western world is only talking about we'll give you arms, we'll give you arms, we'll give you that, then there is a failure of European policy, meaning that they could not regulate their differences. They could not regulate it. We saw what happened in Africa when civil wars and other things were going on. The Western world came out and then professed prevention of conflict, management of conflict, and resolution. So if they are not speaking such a language, there is a problem in Europe now. And I don't think that this war is going to last. Their credibility is at stake as the leaders of the world, and they would eventually be forced to the negotiating table and eventually resolve the conflict.
There are some I've heard, Mr. Hosu, who have suggested that if you monitor the developing story across Western media platforms, you'll be tempted to have a different ideology of what Russia wants than what it's actually happening on the ground. From what you're explaining to us right now, do you think the coverage has been fair and balanced?
Oh, no. Anytime there is conflict, even in our local homes, what happens is that you premise your discourse, your language on such a way as to defend yourself and talk as if you are winning, you are on it. So the whole discourse has been premised in good guys, bad guys, the Western world and Ukraine being the good guys and Russia being the bad guy. And when you go Russia, this is not happening. But when you listen to Putin's own statement, it is Russia that is the good guy and Ukraine that is the bad guy. So when it comes to this in particular in what we call total warfare, public relations corporations have been engaged and are being paid how to send out messages to win hearts and minds of people. So when you listen to the Western world, you will not. There are professors like, is it Zimmerman of Chicago University, which has thoroughly condemned what the Western world is doing, blaming particularly the U.S. There is also a Democrat senator which has spoken on Fox News and condemned that all that is happening is largely because of this policy of the Western world to weaken China and Russia. That is why they are using Ukraine as a buffer state to destabilize Russia. And Russia doesn't want to wait to that point when it is weak, but rather to attack now. But you don't see this in the mainstream news. Well, as I was saying yesterday on Talking Point, the British minister has been going around all Africa, speaking to African states that they should condemn Russia. And my concern is that the violence does not concern only Russia and Ukraine, but there are fallouts that are affecting Ghanaians and Ghanaian businesses, students, and all kinds of things. And the only way forward is to address the real issues. This is the only way that we can come out of this quagmire. But then it is not just using some of the international relations terms, the territorial integrity and whatnot. These are things that are highly contested. So there is the need to look at what actually is happening. Can what is happening in Ukraine happen close to United States of America? We've seen the 1963 Cuban Missile Crisis. So I am expecting the government of Ghana, I'm expecting ECOWAS to play a leadership role here, call on the West, call on Russia, and let them address real issues and bring about peace, than taking easy sides and saying that this man is right, this man is wrong, and that sort of thing.
Mr. Hosu, thank you so much for your time spent with us this morning, giving us a better understanding of the developing issues around Russia and Ukraine. We'll pick your thoughts again perhaps some other time so we can understand this story better. Sani, perhaps finally, as we begin to wrap up, you've listened to Mr. Hosu. China and India abstained from that crucial UN Security Council vote, and they are pretty much sitting on the fence and said, we are not going to get involved in this conversation. Ghana joining other countries to vote condemning Russia, and of course, Russia voting to say, I have not done any wrongs. As we try to find a peaceful resolution of the conflict, where should we be looking? Quickly.
Diplomacy. I mean, they say diplomacy is the art of telling someone to go to hell, and the person would ask you for the direction to hell, because you say it so nicely that the person thinks you are saying something pleasant, and it doesn't end. Despite the belligerence, I think it can be continued, and I'm hoping that by the end of the day, there will be a stop to the belligerence ongoing. It is quite obvious that Russia wants to establish some sort of an iron curtain, so it is imperative that we also take into consideration their military or security concerns. And China couldn't have said it better. I personally followed the speeches with the UN Security Council. I heard the Chinese representative saying that in as much as we detest war, I think the world has largely ignored Russia's security concerns, and it's important that we take that into consideration. But from my perspective, like I always say, no war is ever too good and no peace is ever too bad.
No war is ever too good, no peace is ever too bad. Protect the peace, basically, is what Adib Sani, international relations and security analyst, is saying to us. Thank you so much for your
pleasure,
time.
always.
And breakfast is still live on GTV. Remember, tomorrow there's a crunch meeting between government officials and parents and guardians of students, Ghanaian students and other residents in Ukraine, and they are going to be talking about ways to get them out safely. We'll continue keeping those programs within our line of sight, and when the details emerge tomorrow from that meeting, we'll have the opportunity to interrogate them a bit further on. We've been looking at the Ukraine situation and the plans to evacuate Ghanaian students. We will be linking up very shortly with a program that the Vice President is about to address. So when we have that link, we'll go over to it shortly. But until we do, I guess we will have a few more minutes to interrogate some of the other issues a bit further. I've heard the Ukrainian president address speakers using various means. He's making these little videos, and he's basically appealing to people. This was a man who was an actor, a comedian, before he won the election, simply dressed, being very relatable, trying to tell Ukrainians, do not abandon your country, stay and fight. Anyone who is able to pick up arms will give you the guns. Their foreign minister, I've also listened to him, he's saying, well, the international community say they want to help, we need weapons to fight with. So it's not about saying it with your mouth, actually bring. Do you see members of these supposed friends of Ukraine sending actual troops onto the grounds to
well,
I'm hesitating to say to match the Russian power?
It will be dangerous. It will be very dangerous. The only thing we see happening is these friendly countries sending weapons. Some have sent anti-tank missiles, some have sent surface-to-air missiles and the rest. But for them to have presence on the ground to confront the Russian forces is something that I doubt would happen. It, however, goes without saying that the Ukrainian president is very popular. I mean, he got over 70% of the votes when he contested against Poroshenko. And he came to power without his party having a seat in parliament. But guess what? Later, when elections were held, he had an absolute majority in parliament, the first time in Europe. The only one in Europe currently. And his videos has also helped improve morale on the ground. He's called for Ukrainians of the fighting age, I think between 18 and 60.
I think they call it martial law. They invoked martial law, which meant that
well.
anyone from 18 to 60 who is able to fight
can do so, exactly. And they've been given the weapons. Some have been given Molotov cocktail to confront the Russians. And I think so far it's been successful. But the question is, how sustainable is it? How long can we continue this war?
And that's the exciting part, isn't it? The imposition of sanctions came very swiftly, and we had all the hard talks from the world leaders, and they were saying that Russia will feel the pinch of this very sternly. Do you think it matters very much to Russia, looking at the posturing of the president and the Russian officials, that sanctions have been imposed in the first place?
Well, it does matter, I must say. For example, to be removed from the SWIFT system is really going to cripple your economy. However, it is instructive to note that Russia has not been completely removed from the SWIFT system. It is some banks. And the SWIFT ban is not also going to affect the energy sector. If not, Europe would not be able to pay for the gas. And it is also important to understand that imposing sanctions doesn't necessarily affect only Russia, because trade is mutual, it's mutually beneficial. And so Russia, it affects everybody as well.
Russia produces at least 10% of the world's fuel, and so if it just like on the ban on the international flights, with some countries, UK and others, banning flights to and from Russia, and Russia reciprocating the moves and saying, well, we are not also allowing, we are not coming to you either. You see the firm stand of making a stand for what they are pushing at this negotiation table, with which Mr. Putin is telling us they've been trying to get the US to come to for the past 30 years.
Yeah, of course, Putin would not want to portray himself as a weakling. Besides, before he went into this, he knew the implications. There's absolutely no way you can go to war with Ukraine without sanctions.
But at what cost? If he feels a legitimate reason to keep on hammering the fact that he thinks his security is being encroached upon, is this the way to go about it? Now, from what we are being told, hundreds of lives have been lost already.
Well, I am personally opposed to war in the first place. But let us also consider the security interests. I mean, because this is a geopolitical issue. No country, I'm not sure the US would allow any country to come and place their missiles and the rest at their doorsteps, the same way Russia wouldn't want to. And so this is something that has been lingering for some time, especially since the overthrow of the Russian puppet regime in 2014. There's been a Minsk agreement also. There's been negotiations ongoing. When the troop movement started, Sergei Lavrov, who is the Russian foreign minister, said that they were making progress and that the sticking points were now being agreed to, and there was some renewed energy and hope in the fact that peace would prevail. But I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, everything disintegrated and Putin decided that, hey, I have to go. And like I indicated, there are two things to this. Either he's seeking to prove a point, or he wants to just take over the country and put in place that iron curtain between Russia and NATO.
Just like he seems to have done with Belarus, which has become like more or less a strong buffer zone, with the map that we saw with all the blue NATO countries that are now surrounding Ukraine. And I just wonder what your thoughts would be. We've spoken to some of the students and you heard them at the start of this interview. Joseph in particular has had to move from his original base, and now he's sheltering down with a colleague. But they are dead in the center of this. They are in Sumy. The ministry is telling us that they cannot access those areas. What would you say should be their key priorities as they seek to keep safe in this crisis?
Okay, first and foremost, I think that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has rather been reactive rather than being proactive. We have a research department, which is the CIA of Ghana, under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, that is supposed to gather intelligence internationally. And I'm hoping, I was thinking that they would have been able to gather intelligence to point to the fact that Russia is likely to attack or not. Well, even if they weren't, we had Western intelligence, US, British, French, Italian intelligence, all pointing to the fact that Vladimir Putin is going to attack. So they could have relied on that. At that same time, we had countries evacuating their citizens. So I think if we were proactive enough, we would have been able to evacuate all of these students before this time. And doing it at this time would be very dangerous. I don't know whether I mentioned it. Flight MH17, which is a civilian airliner, was shot down in eastern Ukraine by Russian-backed separatists, resulting in the death of about 293 people. When Iran was going to retaliate for the killing of Suleiman, they also downed the civilian airliner. So even if the airspace was open, it wouldn't be a good idea, because anything flying might be seen as a threat. The same with road, train, and the rest. I mean, it's a war situation, for crying out loud.
So what
Anything
should they
is possible.
do? You are a security analyst. If they were to go out, they were to get food, what should be those key things they should look out for? They say that they need money. Is it possible to send them monies across electronic platforms? And how do they even get the monies from phone to hand to go into the shops to buy and stock up enough for the uncertain days ahead?
Like Joseph and the other gentleman was saying, Samuel, it's becoming very challenging for them to access fiscal cash, and so some of them have resorted to the use of to selling, money. So if they have the electronic cash, I'm pretty sure they might be able to get the cash from those persons who have been able to get to safety to hand them over the cash for the electronic money. But it is important that they adhere strictly to local protocols, okay? Because according to the Ukrainian authorities, people should switch off the lights at night. If you are moving, the Ghanaian authorities have also indicated that you have to move with some supplies, and of course with your Ghanaian passport. But as much as they can, they should stay away from the streets. They should keep a low profile, stay indoors, hunker down until it is safe enough for them to be moved to a different place.
Thank you, Sani. I will be putting up this information from the ministry pretty shortly on the meeting with the parents of students tomorrow. So this is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. Accra, 26th February. In view of the prevailing precarious security situation in Ukraine, which has necessitated the evacuation of Ghanaian nationals, among others, from the country to safety, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Honorable Sheila Koboche, is cordially inviting all parents, guardians or relatives of Ghanaian nationals in Ukraine to a meeting, the details of which are as follows. Date, Tuesday the 1st of March at the Accra International Conference Center, 10 a.m. prompt, and your presence will be highly appreciated. This is the information that has been circulated. So the ministry is looking forward to sitting down with parents, guardians or relatives of Ghanaian nationals in Ukraine, and so that crunch meeting is tomorrow, and the details we will follow and let you know what happened. It's still Breakfast Live on GT. We've been speaking to Sani Adib, international relations and security analyst. He's been sharing his thoughts on Ukraine. We were joined on the phone by Ken Ahosu, senior research fellow, Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. We also spoke to Joseph Youngson and his friend Samuel, who are keeping shelter dead in the city of Sumi, which we've been told is now a very dangerous place, and evacuation will not be possible. They're trying to keep safe, and we'll monitor the situation and let you know what happens. For now, Breakfast is live on GTV. We'll be having a quiet conversation after the break. Stay with us. Good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling helping.
Yeah, all the time. Okay, let's take a peek.
I brought my spine.
There are certain things that we do to help the children with their brushing.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
You want it served buffet style?
On-site restaurant.
Complimentary breakfast?
Off of your plate should be vegetables. So in my lifetime, I haven't seen Ghana Black Stars win an African Cup.
Can I show what this written about?
Yes, definitely.
Where's the camera?
Stand and turn.
So what's your pleasure than Votras, yeah? At that time of the morning. So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
We've got you covered with a trusted team.
Good morning, my neighbors.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling helping.
Yeah, all the time. Okay, let's take a peek.
I brought my spine.
There are certain things that we do to help the children with their brushing.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
You want it served buffet style?
On-site restaurant.
Complimentary breakfast?
Off of your plate should be vegetables. So in my lifetime, I haven't seen Ghana Black Stars win an African Cup.
Can I show what this written about?
Yes, definitely.
Where's the camera?
Just stand and turn.
So what's your pleasure than Votras, yeah? At that time of the morning. So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
We've got you covered with a trusted team.
Good morning, my neighbors.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling healthy.
A la carte.
Watching GTV breakfast, and after all the Ukraine and Russia issues, let's just cool it down with a good vibe right here on the warmer side of the set. Go for a break. This is Your World, brought to you by Quick Credit, lending made simple. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Good morning, my neighbors.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling healthy.
A la carte.
Yeah, all the time. Okay, let's take a peek. Let's take a peek at I brought my spine.
There are certain things that we do to help the children with their brushing.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
You want it served buffet style?
On-site restaurant.
Complimentary breakfast?
Off of your plate chicken vegetables. So in my lifetime, I haven't seen Ghana Black Stars win an African Cup.
Can I show what is written on the back?
Yes, definitely.
Where's the camera?
Just stand and turn.
So what's your pleasure than Votras, yeah? At that time of the morning. So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
We've got you covered with a trusted team.
Okay, so yeah, you heard that song, and I was wondering whether Joe Mettel actually spoke ever in that song. And so the secrets are going to be revealed right now on the show, because I have members of the Bethel Revival Choir here with me to talk about the great things that are happening with the choir. It's good to just have some nice music to end all the political and international affairs talk. So I'm here sitting and chatting with Cynthia and Edmond. Cynthia used to be a president. She's now a former president, okay? Former president. Yeah. Cynthia Fiato, immediate past president of the Bethel Revival Choir, and then Edmond Amado, who is a member of the choir. Both of you are tenor singers.
Yes.
I shall test your tenor moves in a short while. So get ready. Welcome, Yawizon. Good to have you all here.
Thank you too.
This choir is doing things. The music is just so authentically Ghanaian and rich, and it moves people even though they don't even understand most of the time what you are singing about. When did everything begin? I'll start with you first. Past president.
Like 30 years ago, because I joined the choir in '89.
Okay.
So you can tell it's been happening underneath. Very quiet. We launched our first album, I think in 20. That was a long time ago.
But whose idea was it to bring this choir up from '89? I mean, who were the founders?
The founder is Mr.
As a singer, you know,